Chapter 111 The Shock of the Crowd. Qingyao instantly kills Murong Xiaodang. After Xiao Zi heard Chu Fan's words, she pouted, then slowly turned her gaze to the Heavenly Talent Arena. Perhaps because of the unwritten rules of the Heavenly Prodigy battle, the strongest prodigy on stage in this round was only at the Meridian Opening Realm, which left Xiao Zi completely uninterested. Even Chu Fan found it incredibly dull. However, the lower-ranked cultivators below were extremely excited, with waves of intense cheers erupting from them. Time passed quickly, and half a day went by in a flash. Whether it was luck or not, Qingyao didn't step onto the stage once during this half-day. Chu Fan and Xiao Zi were both so bored they almost fell asleep. After an unknown number of rounds, it was finally Qingyao's turn. The name Qingyao of the Prince of Junbei's estate appeared on the pillar in the center of the Heavenly Talent Arena. And whether it was intentional by the Fengyan dynasty or not, Qingyao's opponent was Murong Xiaotang, a prodigy from the Great Yan imperial family, considered a decent prodigy throughout the Great Yan. The Great Yan imperial family was not like the Prince of Junbei's estate, which only had Chu Fan and the long-forgotten Chu Chun. Of course, Chu Chun did not appear here. Therefore, quite a few members of the Great Yan imperial family participated in the Heavenly Prodigy battle this time, and Murong Xiaodang was one of them. When Chu Fan saw Qingyao's opponent, he slowly raised his head and looked in the direction of Yun Xiaodian of the Fengyan dynasty. He wouldn't believe such a coincidence existed. However, Chu Fan was not against Qingyao facing a member of the Great Yan imperial family. In fact, he felt a little pleased. He was bored anyway, so seeing the Great Yan dynasty suffer a setback naturally made him very happy. As for the others, the moment they saw the words Prince of Junbei's estate appear, they all became excited. However, they didn't expect that the one making a move this time wasn't the Prince of Junbei's heir, Chu Fan, but someone they had never heard of. This made them a little disappointed, but when they saw Qingyao's opponent, they became excited again. After all, her opponent was a member of the Great Yan imperial family. Everyone knew the relationship between the Prince of Junbei's estate and the Great Yan imperial family, so they looked forward to this impending great battle. At this moment, not only were the spectators excited, but even the other great imperial dynasties began to grow curious. Murong Xiaodang of the Great Yan dynasty directly used his movement technique to quickly land on the arena, his eyes filled with excitement as he looked towards Chu Fan's side, and within this excited gaze, there was also a hint of killing intent. Chu Fan did not take the killing intent in Murong Xiaodang's eyes to heart. After all, he would not bother with a dying person. However, Qingyao did not feel the same way. She appeared on the arena instantly, holding her instantaneous spear, and looked coldly at Murong Xiaotang opposite her. Clearly, at this moment, she already regarded Murong Xiaotang in front of her as a dead man. The moment Qingyao arrived on the arena, Murong Li, the emperor of the Great Yan dynasty, instantly stood up from his seat, looking at Qingyao on the arena with an incredulous expression. How could it be her? At this moment, Murong Li was truly shocked. Although he didn't know Qingyao's name, he was very clear about Qingyao's strength. After all, this person was in existence who had slain those in the Grotto Heaven realm. How could Murong Xiaodang, a mere cultivator of the Meridian Opening realm, be her opponent? What made Murong Li even more incredulous was that Qingyao had actually entered the arena, which meant that Qingyao's age met the requirements. This meant that the Prince of Junbei's estate had a peerless prodigy, and given her time, she would definitely be able to break through to the Dharma aspect realm in the future. Seeing Qingyao on the arena, Murong Li felt as if he was looking at a future Dharma aspect realm expert. At this moment, Murong Li's face was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. A cultivator suspected to be in the Grotto Heaven realm, or even the spirit roaming realm, and she can still enter the arena. It seems that a dark horse has truly appeared in the Prince of Junbei's estate in this heavenly prodigy battle, and she's already the predetermined first-place dark horse. Mengu of the Mengyuan dynasty also stood up from his seat, looking at Qingyao on the arena. He had indeed been watching the show just now, but the moment he saw Qingyao appear, he couldn't sit still. After all, Qingyao's strength had truly exceeded his expectations. Yes, I never thought the Prince of Junbei's estate would have such a prodigy. I'm afraid the first place in this heavenly prodigy battle belongs to the Prince of Junbei's estate. Mengyu also looked at Chu Fan with a curious expression at this moment. She felt that she understood Chu Fan less and less. The endless stream of powerful individuals around Chu Fan shocked her even more. It seems I still underestimated the strength of the Prince of Junbei's estate. Yun Xiaodian, the imperial lord of the Fengyan dynasty, was also shocked by this scene. He hadn't expected the Qingyao participating in the heavenly prodigy battle to be this mysterious female cultivator, suspected to be in the spirit roaming realm. At this moment, it wasn't just the four great dynasties that were shocked, but also the major powers who knew Qingyao's strength. They hadn't expected that the Prince of Jinbei's estate would send such a terrifying prodigy to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. Unlike the shock of the various other forces, Murong Xiaodang on the arena at this moment was not shocked. Instead, he looked at Qingyao in front of him with a smile. Clearly, at this moment, he did not know Qingyao's true strength. I didn't expect the Prince of Jinbei's estate to have such a beautiful woman. How about this beauty comes to my great Yan imperial family? That would be better than staying in the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Murong Xiaodang said, looking at Qingyao in front of him with a fervent expression, his eyes filled with a powerful possessiveness. At this moment, Murong Xiaodang didn't notice that the temperature around him had instantly dropped by half. After hearing Murong Xiaodang's words, the crowd outside the arena looked at him with pity in their eyes. At the same time, beyond the pity, there was more curiosity. They wanted to see what Murong Xiaodang's fate would be. At this moment, even Murong Li, the emperor of the Great Yan Dynasty, looked at Murong Xiaodang on the arena with an expression of disgust. He wished he could go to the arena and kick Murong Xiaodang away. Just as everyone was looking at the arena with anticipation, Qingyao on the arena did not speak in response to Murong Xiaodang's evil gaze. Instead, she instantly transformed into a phantom. Then, with a single punch, she sent Murong Xiaodang flying. The terrifying speed was such that Murong Xiaodang didn't even react before he felt a sharp pain in his chest. The next second, he was sent flying directly. At the same time, a huge hole appeared in Murong Xiaodang's chest, and blood was constantly dripping onto the ground. After completing all of this, Qingyao did not linger on the arena. Instead, she left the arena holding the instantaneous spear in her hand. Although the cultivators below the arena all knew the outcome of this so-called great battle, they were somewhat disappointed to see Murong Xiaodang fall so easily. After all, they still wanted to see Qingyao's true strength, and Murong Xiaodang's easy demise indeed disappointed them. Chapter 112: A series of prodigies emerge, leading to an unexpected result. When Chu Fan saw Qingyao defeat her opponents so easily, he smiled faintly at her. As for the cultivators below the stage who did not yet know Qingyao's true strength, they stared at her in disbelief. They had not expected Qingyao's strength to be so terrifying. How interesting. The strength of Qingyao from the Prince of Jinbei's estate has probably already far surpassed the divine power realm, hasn't it? Gongsun Jian slowly spoke while looking in the direction of Chu Fan at the Prince of Jinbei's estate. However, there was no fear in his eyes at this moment. Rather, there was a monstrous battle intent. This young lady's strength is probably no weaker than ours now. Even if the two of us join forces, we might not be her opponent. After all, she is a ruthless person who can withstand a blow from a Dharma aspect realm master. Standing beside Gongsun Jian was a man holding a jade flute. A mischievous smile appeared on this man's face, but when his gaze landed on Qingyao, his eyes were filled with solemnity. This person was exactly Yu Wuhan. Although his strength had also reached the divine power realm, he felt that if he were to face Qingyao, he wouldn't stand chance. Although Gongsun Jian did not nod in agreement when he heard Yu Wuhan's words, the solemnity in his eyes could not be hidden. As expected of a prodigy, this time, the only person who can contend with me is probably the one from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At the same time, among the crowd of cultivators, a youthful man wearing a black bamboo hat looked in Qingyao's direction, emitting terrifying battle intent. If one sensed carefully, they would find that the aura of this youthful man wearing a bamboo hat had already reached the divine power realm. More importantly, his cultivation had far surpassed that of an ordinary divine power realm cultivator, and he was probably not far from the Grotto Heaven realm. How terrifying is the strength of this woman from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. She is probably the biggest dark horse in this heavenly prodigy battle, and might even secure one of the top spots in this heavenly prodigy battle. That's for sure. The cultivation of this woman from the Prince of Jinbei's estate has probably reached the divine power realm. The divine power realm naturally makes her stronger than many others. I didn't expect the Prince of Jinbei's estate to be hiding so deeply. They actually fielded a divine power realm prodigy this time. Yes, even if the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, doesn't make a move, the Prince of Jinbei's estate can still secure one of the top spots in the prodigy battle this time. We just don't know what rank this young lady can achieve in the heavenly prodigy battle. In any case, the rank of this woman from the Prince of Jinbei's estate won't be lower than the top 10. The people below who were unfamiliar with Qingyao began discussing amongst themselves, but at this moment, they did not believe Qingyao's cultivation was extremely high. Instead, they believed Qingyao's cultivation must have reached the divine power realm. After all, to be able to kill a meridian opening realm master so easily, Qingyao's strength must definitely have reached the divine power realm. Instantly, everyone once again directed curious gazes toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate. However, the The shock caused by Qingyao only lasted for a moment. In the subsequent battles, many more noteworthy figures appeared. Among them, Gongsun Jian and Yu Wuhan also defeated their opponents in a single move, instantly becoming the standouts of the entire prodigy battle once again. Naturally, the fourth prince of the Fengyan dynasty and the princes of other imperial dynasties also appeared in this prodigy battle. And the four great dynasties truly deserved to be the four peak powers of the eastern region. The strength of the princes of the four great dynasties had all reached the divine power realm. However, the four great dynasties of the eastern region were not happy, because they all knew that Qingyao from the prince of Jinbei's estate had already reached the spirit roaming realm. Even though the strength of the princes of their four great dynasties had reached the divine power realm, they would be unable to obtain first place in this prodigy battle. Naturally, the most resentful were the Great Yin dynasty and the Fengyan dynasty, as they were the two imperial dynasties that currently harbored great hatred toward the prince of Jinbei's estate. While the feud between the Fengyan dynasty and the prince of Jinbei's estate could still be restrained, the Great Yin dynasty consistently directed murderous gazes toward the location of the prince of Jinbei's estate. As prodigies participating in the heavenly prodigy battle took the stage one after another, the first round of the heavenly prodigy battle soon concluded. After the first round of the heavenly prodigy battle ended, many people noticed a particularly crucial matter. That was the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, had not participated in this heavenly prodigy battle. Their initial anticipation turned into confusion. Initially, many people were looking forward to Chu Fan appearing on the heavenly talent arena, but until the very end, Chu Fan's figure did not appear, immediately causing them confusion. After all, Chu Fan was the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate. It seemed unreasonable for him not to make a move in this heavenly prodigy battle. Why didn't the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, make a move? Did he choose not to participate because of his own strength? Who knows? After all, the prince of Jinbei's estate has a prodigy who can enter the top ranks participating this time. It's normal for him, the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, not to make a move. Yes, after all, Qingyao's strength has reached the divine power realm. Naturally, he, the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, doesn't need to make a move. Otherwise, wouldn't people laugh if he were defeated? But it's truly disappointing. I wanted to see exactly what level of strength this heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate had reached. I didn't expect him not to participate in this prodigy battle. Perhaps he simply didn't want to participate. After the first round of the heavenly prodigy battle concluded, all the cultivators below were discussing why Chu Fan had not participated in this prodigy battle. Naturally, many conclusions were drawn from the discussions of these cultivators. Some people thought Chu Fan felt his strength was too weak, so he chose not to participate in this battle. Others felt that Chu Fan was still young, so participating in this battle held no advantage for him. Of course, there were also those who believed Chu Fan chose not to participate in this battle to avoid disgracing the prince of Jinbei's estate. The crowd below offered various opinions, but this did not affect Chu Fan in the slightest, as his current strength had already far surpassed these so-called prodigies. It could be said that these so-called Eastern region prodigies below didn't even interest him enough to make a move. Why didn't that damned Chu Fan participate in this heavenly prodigy battle? Is he scared? In the direction of the Great Yan imperial family, Murong was full of rage after learning that Chu Fan had not participated in this heavenly prodigy battle. Originally, he had wanted Chu Fan to perish on the arena, but he didn't expect the person to choose not to participate in this prodigy battle at all, instantly foiling his plan. Moreover, more importantly, Qingyao's strength was sufficient to sweep through all the prodigies participating in the heavenly prodigy battle, making it impossible for them to prevent the prince of Jinbei's estate from winning. Chapter 113, The Great Yan Dynasty's Conspiracy. Chu Fan at the center of the storm. The third prince of the Great Yan dynasty also looked towards Chu Fan's direction with an angry expression after hearing his imperial father's words. This third prince of Great Yan is the strongest prodigy of the Great Yan imperial family in this generation, and his cultivation has reached the divine power realm late stage. It can be said that barring any accidents, he will be able to achieve one of the top few ranks in this heavenly prodigy battle. Imperial father, if Chu Fan doesn't participate in this heavenly prodigy battle, then we will force him to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. The third prince of Great Yin, NEWBIE, suddenly had his eyes light up, and then he spoke to Murong. How can we force Chu Fan to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle? After all, the heavenly prodigy battle has already started, and it's impossible for him to enter midway to participate. Murong's eyes suddenly lit up after hearing Murong's words, but he quickly remembered the rules of this heavenly prodigy battle, so he looked towards Chu Fan's direction with a hateful expression. Chu Fan didn't choose to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle at the beginning, so how could he possibly enter and participate now? Furthermore, how could Chu Fan be so easily provoked into joining the heavenly prodigy battle. Imperial Father, your son believes that the Fengyan Dynasty and the Tianqing Dynasty will definitely not let Chu Fan off. If we discuss it with them, they will certainly agree to include Chu Fan's name in the list of participants for this heavenly prodigy battle. Muronbai spoke slowly after hearing Murong Li's words. After speaking, he did not forget to look towards the Fengyan Dynasty and the Tianqing Dynasty. There is already a huge grudge between the Fengyan Dynasty and Chu Fan, so if they have the chance to kill Chu Fan now, they will definitely be extremely willing. As for the Tianqing Dynasty, they probably don't want to see the power of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate continuously expanding, right? Therefore, they will definitely agree to our request. Muronbai continued speaking when he saw the shift in Murong Li's gaze. At this moment, if he wanted his imperial father to agree to his request, he had to state terms that would satisfy Murong Li. The difficulty we face now is how to make Chu Fan participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. Although we can forcibly write his name among the participants, what if he refuses to acknowledge it? Murong Li's eyes lit up after hearing Murong Bai's words. After all, if that were the case, their plan would already be halfway successful. However, the most important thing now is how to make Chu Fan participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. After all, if they set a trap and Chu Fan doesn't jump into it, their scheme will be useless. Your son doesn't believe that Chu Fan doesn't care about his reputation. As long as we release news saying that Chu Fan is afraid of our great Yin dynasty, and thus dares not participate in this heavenly prodigy battle, your son believes he will participate in this heavenly prodigy battle eagerly to prove himself. Murong Bai slowly stepped forward again and spoke to Murong Li, revealing the entirety of his plan. Good, then it is decided. I will handle the negotiations with the other dynasties. Murong Li immediately agreed with Murong Bai's suggestion. After all, if this plan truly succeeded, they could eliminate Chu Fan first. Facing the Prince of Zhenbei's estate afterward would be much simpler. After all, if the Prince of Zhenbei's estate no longer had an heir, wouldn't it be like a toothless tiger in their eyes? Following this, Murong Li urgently went to find Yun Xiaotian, the emperor of the Fengyan Dynasty, and the emperor of Tianqing Dynasty. After several hours of discussion, the few people agreed to Murong Li's plan. The first day of the heavenly prodigy battle ended at this time. Perhaps knowing Qingyao's strength was great, her opponent in the second round was also a cultivator of the Meridian Opening Realm. And this cultivator of the Meridian Opening Realm chose to surrender immediately when facing Qingyao, as he certainly did not want the same outcome as Murong Xiaoding. Following the conclusion of the first day of the heavenly prodigy battle, the cultivators returned to their respective stations to rest. Chu Fan and the others naturally returned to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate station without any delay. Although today's heavenly prodigy battle made Chu Fan feel that it was nothing special, Qingyao's appearance made the entire Prince of Zhenbei's estate famous. Now everyone knows that the Prince of Zhenbei's estate has a woman named Qingyao, who is an unparalleled prodigy, and she will likely achieve very brilliant results in this heavenly prodigy battle. Of course, besides Qingyao, the reputations of the other prodigies in the divine power realm were also spread widely. Many hidden prodigies were also exposed during this battle. A night passed quickly. After a night of rest, Chu Fan once again led Qingyao and the others towards the heavenly talent arena. However, as Chu Fan just left the Prince of Zhenbei's estate station, he noticed many cultivators outside looking at him with disdainful gazes. At the same time, many cultivators were pointing at him and discussing something quietly. As a Dharma aspect realm cultivator, Chu Fan naturally heard the discussions about himself very easily. Let me go teach them a lesson. Qingyao, a spirit roaming realm cultivator, naturally also heard the topics the cultivators were discussing. She spoke to Chu Fan, holding the instantaneous spear in her hand with an angry expression. She hadn't expected these people would dare to slander her heir so openly. It's fine. I think someone must have orchestrated this. Their goal is to make me participate in this heavenly prodigy battle. I just don't know what ability they have to make me join the prodigy roster now. Chu Fan naturally understood the topic of these people's discussion. Someone must have spread rumors to completely ruin his reputation. However, he couldn't figure out what power these people possessed that would allow him to join the heavenly prodigy battle midway. Young Master. If several dynasties join forces, perhaps they really can manage to get Young Master to join the heavenly prodigy battle. Guojia, who was beside Chu Fan, smiled and spoke, though a playful smile could be seen on his face. Clearly, at this moment, he had already guessed the true masterminds behind this conspiracy. The Great Yin Dynasty and the Fengyan Dynasty are definitely participating. As for the other dynasty, it must be the Tianqing Dynasty. After all, they also don't want to see the power of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate gradually strengthening. Chu Fan also realized this after hearing Guojia's words. At the same time, he also guessed the true masterminds who were targeting him. That's right. Among the four great dynasties of the eastern region, perhaps only the Mengyuan dynasty has not participated in this incident. After all, they don't have a major grudge with my Prince of Jinbei's estate, nor do they have any need to clash with us. After all, watching the tigers fight from the mountain is much better than getting involved. Guojia fully agreed with Chu Fan's speculation. Chapter 114, The Expectations of the Crowd. Chu Fan's domineering response. What's more important is that the three great dynasties have already agreed to let Chu Fan join the Heavenly Prodigy battle midway, so they no longer need to try and win over the Mengyuan dynasty. After all, the relationship between the Mengyuan dynasty and the three great dynasties is not that friendly. It can even be said that, were it not for a common goal, the other three great dynasties would not maintain such amicable relations among themselves. In the eastern region, everything is driven by profit. Since there is no mutual benefit between the Mengyuan dynasty and the three great dynasties in this incident, they naturally will not choose to join the three great dynasties' camp to target the Prince of Jinbei's estate. It's a pity they miscalculated. Would this young master be such an impulsive person? After hearing Guojia's words, Chu Fan smiled faintly, and then he slowly walked toward the Heavenly Talent Arena as if he hadn't heard the discussions of the surrounding cultivators. However, the killing intent in his eyes was undisguised and directly released. Guojia, who was behind Chu Fan, naturally also sensed the killing intent emanating from Chu Fan. He chuckled and then followed Chu Fan's steps. Qingyao, however, followed Chu Fan with a look of unwillingness. Although he also wanted to teach these people a lesson, after hearing the words of Chu Fan and Guojia just now, he knew that the true masterminds this time were not these cultivators. I wonder how you plan to resolve this matter this time. Xiaozi, walking at the very back, looked at Chu Fan, who was emitting a trace of killing intent ahead of them, her eyes filled with curiosity. Based on her understanding of Chu Fan over this period, she did not believe that Chu Fan would end things so hastily. Furthermore, Chu Fan was currently filled with such terrifying killing intent. Xiaozi believed that Chu Fan definitely had a big move planned. On the other side, Mengyu of the Mengyuan dynasty naturally also heard the discussions of these cultivators. She frowned and then looked unhappily at the cultivators who were talking. Why bother getting angry with them? I believe all of this was arranged by the three great dynasties. Mengyu said softly, looking at the trace of unhappiness on his daughter's face, while his gaze simultaneously swept toward the direction of the three great dynasties. As the imperial lord of the Mengyuan dynasty, he naturally guessed the intentions of the three great dynasties. Currently, these three great dynasties were likely trying every possible way to force Chu Fan, the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, onto the arena. Therefore, the discussions among the surrounding cultivators were likely orchestrated by the three great dynasties. The three great dynasties want to send the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate into the arena and then use the arena to kill the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Truly, this is an excellent plan. Mengyu naturally understood the situation now. She gazed thoughtfully toward Chu Fan's location, but by this time, her unhappy expression had been replaced. At this moment, she looked at Chu Fan with curiosity. She also wanted to know whether Chu Fan would choose to enter the arena or ignore this incident. As for the other three great dynasties, they had also arrived at the Heavenly Talent Arena. The representatives of the three great dynasties were all seated in their respective spots, but they were looking thoughtfully toward the location of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The imperial families of the three great dynasties were all anticipating Chu Fan's arrival. They wanted to see exactly how Chu Fan would choose. No matter what he chose, it would be the best outcome for their three great dynasties. After all, if he chose to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle, it would definitely give them an opportunity. But if he chose not to participate in this heavenly prodigy battle, then the reputation of the Prince of Jinbei's estate would completely decline. Therefore, no matter what Chu Fan chose, it would benefit them. But how could Chu Fan possibly allow them to have their way? As for the other forces who had already guessed some of the truth, they also turned their attention toward the location of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At this moment, they began looking toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate with expressions of pity and schadenfreude. I wonder what younger male cousin will choose. From the direction of the Feng family, Feng Ziki looked worriedly toward the location of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. She had not expected that immediately upon waking up, she would hear news concerning her younger male cousin, and all this news was targeted against him, which made Feng Ziki arrive at the arena very early. Young Master Chu, Tianyi believes you will definitely surprise everyone. From the location of the Divine Elephant Sect, Luo Tianyi looked expectantly toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Perhaps others did not know Chu Fan's strength, but Luo Tianyi was very clear about the extent of Chu Fan's power. Although these people were currently plotting against Chu Fan, how could Chu Fan be so easily schemed against? It could be said that the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was now the focus of all eyes. Under the expectant gaze of the crowd, Chu Fan slowly led the people beside him to the location of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At this moment, he acted as if he hadn't noticed the crowd's attention. He calmly arrived at the Prince of Jinbei's estate spot and then waved his hand toward Qingyao, who was beside him. Qingyao immediately went to pour Chu Fan a cup of tea. Chu Fan accepted the teacup from Qingyao's hand and calmly took a sip of tea. The crowd was somewhat surprised by this scene, but inwardly, they felt more disappointment. They hadn't expected Chu Fan to choose to ignore this entire affair. Brother Gongsun, do you think Chu Fan truly cares so little about the reputation of the Prince of Jinbei's estate? Yu Wuhan, standing in the crowd, looked at Chu Fan's expression, one that showed no intention of paying attention to the matter, and asked Gongsun Jian with some surprise. I don't think he will. Gongsun Jian replied to Yu Wuhan with absolute certainty, his eyes shining brightly as he looked toward Chu Fan. Just as his voice faded, Chu Fan slowly stood up under the disappointed gaze of the crowd. He drained the tea in his hand, and then slowly spoke amidst the confused looks of the onlookers. This heir apparent discovered something targeting this heir apparent today. Although this heir apparent doesn't know who is responsible, this heir apparent doesn't wish to investigate. Murong Li, get down here and die for this heir apparent. After Chu Fan finished speaking, he immediately looked toward the direction of the great Yan imperial family, staring at Murong Li as he spoke, his voice filled with intense killing intent. Chu Fan, you are courting death. Murong Li, who had been excited moments ago, instantly flew into a rage upon hearing Chu Fan's words. He hadn't expected Chu Fan to be so direct as to tell him to get down there. How could Murong Li tolerate this? What do you count for in front of this heir apparent? Chu Fan said calmly while looking at Murong Li across from him. After speaking, he slightly raised his hand. Following this, a streak of light appeared in his hand, and the next second, an ordinary bow materialized in Chu Fan's grip. Chu Fan frowned while looking at the bow in his hand, but he didn't throw it away. Instead, he slightly raised his other hand again. Chapter 1:15 Chu Fan's move shocks everyone. As his other hand slowly rose, a terrifying aura emanated from his body. At the same time, Chu Fan's left hand slowly rested on the bowstring, and in the next second, an arrow made of spiritual qi appeared on the longbow in his hand. As soon as this arrow was successfully condensed, Chu Fan unhesitatingly aimed it directly at Murong Li. A terrifying qi instantly locked onto Murong Li. Murong Li, in the distance, felt his heart tighten for some reason when he saw this scene, and he looked at Chu Fan's direction with horrified eyes. At this moment, for some unknown reason, when he saw Chu Fan's movements, he felt a threat of death, and this deadly danger was constantly approaching him. It was as if he would fall here in the next second. But how could Chu Fan give him a chance at this time? He lightly shot the arrow from his hand. Although his movement was light, this arrow made of spiritual qi was like a wild horse unbridled. It instantly disappeared from Chu Fan's sight and arrived before Murong Li in the blink of an eye. Then, under Murong Li's horrified gaze, it directly pierced his chest. Even the fifth ancestor of Great Yin, who was by his side, didn't react in time before it directly pierced Murong Li's chest. As this arrow made of spiritual qi passed through Murong Li's chest, a force spread from the wound in Murong Li's chest throughout his entire body, as if it wanted to completely devour him. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin, having reacted, quickly came to Murong Li's side and swiftly formed hand seals to prevent the invasion of this force into Murong Li's body. At the same time, the fifth ancestor of Great Yin quickly pulled out a medicinal pill and placed it in Murong Li's mouth. Murong Li's pale face finally showed a hint of relief at this moment, and the blood that was continuously gushing from his chest was also stopped at this moment. However, Murong Li was not feeling any better at this moment. He felt an indescribable force within his body, constantly tearing at his meridians. I can only suppress this force within your body for now. There are only two ways to truly resolve this force. One is to kill Chu Fan, and the other is to wait for the other old ancestors to return, and we will jointly expel it from your body. Looking at Murong Li's pale face, the fifth ancestor of Great Yin spoke with some helplessness. He had not expected Chu Fan's strength to be so terrifying, causing such a situation with just one arrow. Murong Li also stared fixedly at Chu Fan's direction with his pale face, but when he saw Chu Fan's calm eyes, a trace of fear involuntarily arose in his heart. What a pity this arrow didn't kill him. Chu Fan looked at Murong Li, who had narrowly escaped death, and murmured with some regret. And everything that happened in this instant shocked all the cultivators present. Even the emperors of the other great imperial dynasties stood up at this moment, looking at Chu Fan's direction with disbelief. Chu Fan's arrow just now had completely overturned their understanding. Even if they were in Murong Li's position, they might not have been able to withstand this arrow. What a terrifying arrow. Even if it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to resist this arrow. Yun Xiaotian of the Fengyun dynasty looked at Chu Fan's direction with shock in his eyes. At this moment, his apprehension towards Chu Fan increased even more. He had not expected Chu Fan's strength to reach such a terrifying level, although he still didn't know Chu Fan's exact cultivation realm at this time. However, based on that arrow alone, it meant that Chu Fan's strength had at least reached the spirit roaming realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have nearly killed an emperor of Great Yin in the Grotto Heaven realm so easily. This little one is not simple. If that old fellow from Great Yin hadn't rescued him in time, Murong Li would have already gone to meet the ancestors of Great Yin. An inconspicuous elder beside Yun Xiaotian looked at Chu Fan's direction with a hint of solemnity. He also hadn't expected this young man, who had enmity with their Fengyun dynasty, to possess such strength. Old ancestor, can you discern what realm Chu Fan's strength has reached? After Yun Xiaotian heard the elder's words, he couldn't help but ask the elder, while his gaze continuously scrutinized Chu Fan. Even I cannot discern his cultivation realm. But what is certain is that his cultivation realm has at least reached the spirit roaming realm, and at least the late-stage spirit roaming realm. The elder shook his head after hearing Yun Xiaotian's words, then spoke to Yun Xiaotian with a solemn expression. Yun Xiaotian looked at Chu Fan with even more disbelief after hearing the elder's words. Of course, Yun Xiaotian was not the only one feeling shocked at this moment. The imperial lord of the Tianqing dynasty also looked at Chu Fan's direction with an incredulous expression. He had not expected the one he had schemed against to possess such terrifying strength. If Chu Fan were truly allowed to step onto the arena, how could their imperial family's prodigies possibly defeat Chu Fan? I didn't expect the strength of this heir of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate to reach such a level. Even I couldn't resist that arrow just now. It seems the world has underestimated the heir of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate's strength. Meng Gu on the other side also looked at Chu Fan's direction with a surprised expression. Although he greatly admired Chu Fan's actions just now, he had not expected Chu Fan's strength to reach such a terrifying level. Yes, this so-called Eastern Domain prodigy battle might truly be nothing in his eyes. Meng Yu, who was beside Meng Gu, looked at Chu Fan with a gaze full of emotion. At the same time, she also looked at Chu Fan with a curious expression, as if she wanted to completely see through him. Meng Gu shook his head after hearing Meng Yu's words. With such terrifying strength, Chu Fan naturally wouldn't care about this so-called Eastern Domain prodigy battle. Perhaps in his eyes, these prodigies wouldn't even evoke a desire to fight. Gongsun Jian, the strength of this legendary heir of the Prince of Zhenbei's estate is too abnormal. I feel like that arrow, just now, could kill me 1,000,000 times over. Yu Wuhen, in the crowd, looked at Chu Fan's direction with shock in his eyes. He then dazedly patted Gongsun Jian's shoulder, clearly having just recovered from a shock at this moment. His strength is very strong. I can't even take one move from him now. A bitter smile appeared in Gongsun Jian's eyes, but he quickly reigned in that bitterness, replaced by a determined expression. I finally understand why he doesn't participate in the heavenly prodigy battle. In his eyes, we are perhaps like children, Yu Wuhen said with a resentful expression at this moment. Chapter 116 Fame Rises, Reunion with Luo Qianni. The usually proud Gongsun Jian couldn't help but nod after hearing Yu Wuhen's words. At this moment, he agreed with Yu Wuhen's statement, and a new goal emerged in his heart, to catch up to Chu Fan's pace. Is younger male cousin's strength really that formidable? He almost caused Murong Li, who is in the Grotto Heaven realm, to perish. In the direction of the Feng family, Feng Ziki also recovered from her shock. When she looked toward Chu Fan, her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had never expected that the little brat who once followed her around had grown to such a degree. One must know that perhaps even her own grandfather couldn't achieve this feat, because Chu Fan not only possessed strength but also had a boldness that ordinary people lacked. My maternal grandson's strength has probably surpassed that of this old man, huh? Feng Zhan looked at Chu Fan with a beaming face. Naturally, Feng Zhan was extremely delighted that his now only maternal grandson possessed such terrifying strength. At this moment, he wished he could tell everyone in the world that the young man was his maternal grandson. You truly are the brilliant sun whose light cannot be concealed. Now, you have once again radiated your own brilliance. Luo Qianni looked in Chu Fan's direction with a face full of smiles. At this time, she didn't know why she cared so much about Chu Fan, but her heart was completely filled with him. Of course, where there was joy, there was also sorrow and worry. Those forces hostile to Chu Fan began to worry about his growth, especially since Chu Fan's current strength had reached such a level. If he were given more time to grow, Would he reach a point unimaginable to everyone? At the same time, many forces placed Chu Fan among the list of people they absolutely could not offend. Many forces instructed their disciples not to provoke Chu Fan, some even directly setting a rule that anyone who offended Chu Fan would be expelled from their sect. They were not only wary of Chu Fan's strength, but were even more wary of his boldness. After all, everything Chu Fan did seemed extraordinary. He had never feared any force. For example, this time, without any concrete evidence, he directly almost killed the Emperor of Great Yin. How could such a crazy action not make them wary? The cultivators present finally reacted, and the way they looked at Chu Fan began to change. Initially, their gazes held a hint of disdain toward Chu Fan, but now, when they looked at him, the disdain had vanished, replaced by shock and excitement. I knew the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate couldn't possibly have skipped the heavenly prodigy battle because he was afraid of being defeated by others. After all, his strength fully explains why he doesn't need to participate in the heavenly prodigy battle to elevate himself. With such terrifying strength, how could he possibly come to participate in the heavenly prodigy battle and fight against these prodigies whose strength is far below his? The Great Yin imperial family brought this upon themselves. They tried to scheme against him, only to be outmaneuvered. Indeed, even the Emperor of Great Yin almost perished under that single arrow. I'm afraid Great Yin won't dare to scheme against our heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate anymore, because when something happens, he truly acts. The Emperor of Great Yin is truly lucky to survive under such circumstances. At this time, the group of cultivators looked toward the Great Yin imperial family with playful eyes. Simultaneously, they also guessed the origin of the rumor that had been circulating all day. If nothing unexpected happened, the rumor about Chu Fan, the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, that had been spreading today was released by the Great Yin Dynasty, not only because of the enmity between the Great Yin Dynasty and the Prince of Jinbei's estate. More importantly, Chu Fan's recent action completely dumped this responsibility onto the Great Yin Dynasty. Even if they hadn't done it, they now had to bear this blame. Chu Fan's arrow completely defused the conspiracy against him. Meanwhile, Chu Fan calmly continued to sit in his seat. As for the longbow in his hand, it had now returned to the soldier of the Fengyun Dynasty. The soldier of the Fengyun Dynasty stared blankly at the longbow in his hand. He hadn't expected that the longbow he held had almost killed an imperial dynasty's emperor. After this farce ended, the prodigy battle continued. However, during this time, everyone was discussing topics related to Chu Fan. It could be said that Chu Fan's name once again echoed in the ears of the cultivators. Although he did not participate in this prodigy battle, everyone believed that Chu Fan was qualified to win first place in this prodigy battle. In fact, in their view, the rank of first place in this prodigy battle already understated Chu Fan's strength. The heavenly prodigy battle continued, and during this time, Qingyao occasionally stepped onto the arena. Facing opponents weaker than her, Qingyao naturally ended the battle with just one move. These so-called prodigies couldn't even rouse her desire to fight. It seemed that because of Chu Fan's action today, the Fengyun Dynasty did not dare to target Qingyao. So the so-called prodigies Qingyao faced were all in the Meridian Opening Realm. Of course, perhaps because the Fengyun Dynasty felt that Qingyao's strength was too formidable, they did not intend to let true prodigies face her. After all, no prodigy had a chance of winning against Qingyao. Furthermore, if they chose to send those prodigies up, they might offend Chu Fan, that lunatic, and they weren't sure what Chu Fan might do then. Thus, naturally, they adjusted all of Qingyao's opponents to be prodigies in the Meridian Opening Realm. The day's battles quickly concluded. In today's prodigy battle, Qingyao participated in 3 matches, and without exception, all 3 opponents she faced were prodigies in the Meridian Opening Realm. Therefore, she resolved every battle with the fastest speed possible. But Qingyao's reputation also spread among the group of prodigies. Although she couldn't compare to Chu Fan, the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Qingyao, as an unparalleled prodigy, still kept people talking incessantly. After the day's battles concluded, Chu Fan slowly returned to the Prince of Jinbei's estate's temporary residence, carrying a hint of drowsiness. Today's heavenly prodigy battle held no interest for him. After all, the strength of these people was truly too weak, leaving him completely uninspired. Young Master Chu, just as Chu Fan was about to step into the Prince of Jinbei's estate's residence, a clear voice sounded from behind him. Hearing this clear and familiar voice, Chu Fan instantly guessed the owner. He slowly turned his gaze toward the direction the voice came from. He then saw Luo Qianni, accompanied by Luo Qingyun, appear beside the Prince of Jinbei's estate's residence, looking at him with tender eyes. Chapter 117, The Naive Luo Qianni, and the Helplessness of the Great Yin Royal Family. Chu Fan did not expect to see Luo Qianni here, and his listless self instantly became interested. However, At this time, Chu Fan did not notice that Xiao Zi, beside him, had a hint of displeasure on her lips the moment she saw Luo Tianyi appear, and she stared at Chu Fan with a gloomy look. As if Chu Fan at this moment was a heartless man. Guojia, who saw all of this from the side, almost couldn't help but laugh, but soon he raised the fine wine in his hand and drank it. He didn't want to interfere in the affairs of his own young master. Miss Luo, I didn't expect to see Miss Luo here after our separation that day. Chu Fan slowly walked towards Luo Tianyi. Looking at the gentlewoman in front of him, Chu Fan said leisurely. Although Chu Fan had a good impression of Luo Tianyi in front of him, as a single dog in his previous life, he naturally didn't know how to flirt with girls. Moreover, even in this life, he is still a martial arts fanatic. Tianyi also didn't expect to see young Master Chu here, but now young Master Chu's reputation has spread throughout Tianjia City. Luo Tianyi looked at Chu Fan in front of her, and the tenderness in her eyes could not be concealed, but at this time, she still pretended to be calm and said to Chu Fan. However, perhaps because she was lying, a blush appeared on her small face. Sister is lying. Obviously, when we were in the sect, Sister said that we could see Chu Fan Gij when we came here. Unexpectedly, Luo Qingyun opened her mouth to expose her as soon as Luo Tianyi's voice fell. Luo Tianyi, who already had a blush on her small face, had an even more obvious blush on her face after hearing Luo Qingyun's words. Then does Qingyun miss Chu Fan Gij? Chu Fan naturally saw the blush on Luo Tianyi's face, so he slowly turned his gaze to Luo Qingyun beside him, and then changed the subject. Qingyun misses Chu Fan Gij very much, but I don't know how to find Chu Fan Gij. Luo Qingyun ran to Chu Fan's side with a happy face, looking at Chu Fan sincerely in her eyes. Since that's the case, then how about Qingyun staying with Gij next? Chu Fan saw the little one in front of him also full of doting in his eyes, so he slowly stretched out his hand and hugged it in his arms, gently stroking the little one's head. Okay. The little one also enjoyed this very much, and only saw her two big eyes staring at Chu Fan. Chu Fan, holding Luo Qingyun, slowly walked into the Prince of Zhenbei's estate's residence with Luo Tianyi. Their group talked and laughed happily in the Prince of Zhenbei's estate's residence. During this period, Xiao Zi and Luo Tianyi also got to know each other, but the two of them had a hint of hostility towards each other. In contrast to the laughter in the Prince of Zhenbei's estate at this time, the Great Yin Dynasty's residence was so gloomy at this time. Murong Li was sitting painfully in a secret room, while the fifth ancestor of Great Yin and two other Dharma aspect realm experts were constantly suppressing the power in Murong Li's body. They did not expect that after Murong Li returned to the Great Yin residence, the power in his body would be like a wild horse that had run away, and he could no longer control it, directly almost obliterating Murong Li's entire body. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin, who discovered this scene, also hurriedly found two other Dharma aspect realm experts from the Great Yin Dynasty and began to suppress the power in Murong Li's body. Although Murong Li's cultivation was only at the Grotto Heaven realm, he represented the entire Great Yin Dynasty at this time. If he were to die in the Fengyin Dynasty, then the entire Great Yin Dynasty would become a joke to everyone. As time passed bit by bit, the paleness on Murong Li's face also faded away little by little, and at the same time, the fluctuation of a strange power filling his chest also began to slowly subside. Huff! As the fifth ancestor of Great Yin and the two Dharma aspect realm experts simultaneously exhaled deeply, they opened their eyes together. The power in your body has been suppressed by us almost completely. You can last for a year without using spiritual qi, but if you use spiritual qi, you may only have a month left, so you cannot use spiritual qi during this period. Wait for fourth ancestor and the others to come back and solve the power in your body. I can't completely solve it either. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin looked at Murong Li in front of him and said helplessly. He did not expect that Chu Fan's methods would be so terrifying. If he hadn't discovered it early, Murong Li would probably have become a corpse by now. Thank you, old ancestor. Junior understands. Although the paleness on Murong Li's face had faded away for the most part, he still looked so pale at this time, but the resentment on his face had never disappeared. You must know that he almost died just now. At this time, Murong Li hated Chu Fan even more. Don't provoke that guy Chu Fan during this period. After all, his strength has far exceeded our imagination, and there are three perfected Dharma aspect realm experts beside him. Wait for fourth ancestor and the others to come back and deal with the Prince of Zhenbei's estate. The fifth ancestor of Great Yin naturally saw the hatred in Murong Li's heart at this time, so he said leisurely. However, it can be seen that his eyes were full of complicated expressions, and in this complicated look, there was also a hint of fear. At the beginning, he naturally knew Murong Li and Murong Bai's plan, and felt that this plan was feasible. He did not stop Murong Li, But he did not expect that Murong Li almost died because of this plan. So now he can only remind Murong Li. I understand, old ancestor. Although Murong Li was very unwilling, he was helpless at this time. After all, Chu Fan's strength had far exceeded him, and Chu Fan also had 3 perfected Dharma aspect realm existences beside him. He really didn't want to provoke Chu Fan now. Also, the plan to assassinate the Prince of Junbei's estate failed. Everyone has fallen in the Prince of Junbei's estate. It seems that there are still experts in the Prince of Junbei's estate. Before 4th Ancestor and others have returned, cancel all plans against the Prince of Junbei's estate and Chu Fan. At this time, the 5th Ancestor of Great Yin brought another bad news. He instantly seemed to be decades older, and his eyes were full of loneliness. He did not expect that the Great Yin dynasty would become so unrecognizable after he closed up for a while. The mystery of the Prince of Junbei's estate made him a little caught off guard. They also failed. It seems that we underestimated the Prince of Junbei's estate, after all. After Murong Li learned of this news, he was also stunned. Then, he stared blankly ahead. Chapter 118, The Battle of the Prodigies, ends. Summoning continues. Murong Li had been waiting for this final news, but he didn't expect it to deliver such a heavy blow. After the 5th Ancestor of Great Yin left, Murong Li was left sitting there in a daze, although the power within his body had been suppressed at this moment. However, for him, the power within his body was no longer enough to warrant his attention. What truly concerned him was the strength of Chu Fan and the Prince of Junbei's estate. But upon recalling the news that his other ancestors were about to return, the worry and solemnity on his face vanished. After all, only the true 4 great dynasties knew how powerful their foundations were. This was also why the 4 great dynasties did not engage in major wars. Even if they did, it was merely to plunder border cities from other imperial dynasties. Without thorough preparation, they would not launch a full-scale war. For example, the war between the Great Yin dynasty and the Tianqing dynasty, who had always viewed each other as rivals, was merely a probing attempt to seize cities. It was impossible for them to truly fight to the death. I didn't expect Chu Fan's strength to be so terrifying. It seems we have underestimated Chu Fan after all. When Yun Xiaotian of the Fengyun dynasty returned to his station, his gaze drifted towards the direction of the Prince of Junbei's estate. At this moment, he recalled Chu Fan's arrow on the Heavenly Talent Arena. Although Yun Xiaotian's strength had reached the half-step divine roaming realm, he felt that even if he had reached the half-step divine roaming realm, he might not be able to withstand Chu Fan's arrow. From this, one could see just how powerful Chu Fan's arrow was. At the same time, Yun Xiaotian also guessed that Chu Fan's true cultivation had reached the spirit roaming realm, and he had progressed quite far within the spirit roaming realm. Of course, this was merely his speculation. After all, Chu Fan's true cultivation had already reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm, and he was only 1 step away from the King realm, which was above the Dharma aspect realm. With Chu Fan's current cultivate speed, it would not take long for him to enter the King realm. Yun Qingtian, who stood beside Yun Xiaotian, also lowered his head after hearing his words. He finally understood why Chu Fan had been so disdainful of him in the past. After all, Chu Fan's strength was inherently greater than his, and Chu Fan also had 3 Dharma aspect realm cultivators by his side. The other major forces, upon learning Chu Fan's true strength, also began to prepare for the upcoming events. The Heavenly Prodigy battle continued in this dull manner until the 4th day, when Chu Fan directly stopped going to the Heavenly Talent Arena. For him, this battle held no interest whatsoever. Qing Yao, on the other hand, went to the Heavenly Talent Arena alone. With her level of strength, she could naturally defeat every opponent with ease. Half a month passed quickly, meaning this Heavenly Prodigy battle lasted for a full half-month. The final result of this Heavenly Prodigy battle was that Qing Yao, the Dark Horse, unexpectedly secured the first place among the prodigies in the Eastern Domain Prodigy battle. The name of the Prince of Junbei's estate once again resounded throughout Tianjiao City. After Qing Yao achieved first place, Chu Fan also followed her to the Heavenly Talent Arena. Chu Fan's long-awaited appearance on the Heavenly Talent Arena also attracted the attention of many people, as no one dared to underestimate the heir of the Prince of Junbei's estate now. If he had participated in this prodigy battle, he would definitely have achieved an excellent result. Even first place would not have been out of the question. After all, even the Great Yin Emperor in the late stage of the Cave Heaven realm could not withstand a single move from him. Yun Xiaotian of the Fengyun dynasty was not too surprised to see Chu Fan arrive. Instead, he nodded to an old man beside him. The old man then flew directly onto the arena, calmly scanned the crowd present, and slowly began to speak. This session of the prodigy battle has concluded. The first-ranked prodigy on this Eastern Domain prodigy list is Qing Yao of the Prince of Junbei's estate. Second is Feng Ge of the Fengyun dynasty, and third is Mengyu of the Mengyuan dynasty. As the old man's voice slowly reached everyone's ears, it signified that this heavenly prodigy battle had come to an end. Next was the announcement of the prodigy list for this heavenly prodigy battle. After the top 100 names on the prodigy list were recorded, the rewards for the prodigies on the list were announced. As the first on the prodigy list, Qing Miao's rewards naturally far surpassed those of others. She received a profound rank weapon and 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Such rewards might be considered the best for others, but for Qing Miao, there was nothing particularly exciting about them. The instantaneous spear in her hand was a half-earth rank weapon, so she wasn't overly thrilled about receiving a profound rank weapon. As for spirit stones, they didn't have much use for her, merely allowing her to increase her cultivate speed. Let's return to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. I didn't expect this heavenly prodigy battle to be so uninteresting. Upon returning to the Prince of Jinbei's estate station, Chu Fan had no intention of staying in Tianjiao City, as Tianjiao City was too boring for him. Moreover, and more importantly, after returning this time, he could directly choose to launch the final war against the entire Great Yin dynasty. According to news from the net of Luo, the Prince of Jinbei's estate had already taken the Western Territory, and even the entire Eastern Territory was close to being conquered. However, the King of Jindong was still guarding the last few cities in the Eastern Domain. The King of Jindong was indeed another prince of a different surname of Great Yin, and his strength far surpassed that of others. Currently, he had not chosen to fight to the death with the Prince of Jinbei's estate, which was why the Prince of Jinbei's estate had not yet taken the Eastern Territory. Of course, if the Prince of Jinbei's estate's army were to press on fully, they could definitely take the Eastern Territory. But the Prince of Jinbei's estate could not do so, as they still needed to leave some troops to guard against the Tianqing dynasty. System, use my summon opportunity for this month. Chu Fan suddenly thought of something at this moment, so he silently spoke to the system. This heavenly prodigy battle had been going on for a long time, and Chu Fan's summon opportunity for this month had already refreshed. Therefore, he naturally wouldn't waste this summon opportunity. At the same time, Chu Fan also began to look forward to what kind of character this summon opportunity would bring him. During the summoning process over this period, Chu Fan also discovered the key to the summoning system. It could be said that the summoning system was constantly improving with his progress, and after Chu Fan's cultivation improved, the cultivation of the characters summoned by the summoning system also greatly increased. For example, the characters he initially summoned were only at the spirit roaming realm, but as his cultivation improved, the summoned characters had already reached the king realm. Even if they didn't reach the king realm, they would appear with an unexpected army. Chapter 119, Summoning the Yang Family Generals, returning to the Jinbei Prince's mansion. At this moment, the system was constantly operating under Chu Fan's silent command. The next second, a card appeared inside the system space, and this card was shimmering with dazzling light. Congratulations to the host for successfully summoning the Yang Family Generals. The Yang Family Generals include the main General Yang Yi and the 7th Young Master of the Yang family, and they command 200,000 Yang family army. Upon hearing the system's voice, Chu Fan was completely stunned. He had not expected to summon the Yang Family Generals this time. Chu Fan was naturally familiar with the Yang Family Generals, especially the famous saying, 7 sons departed, 6 returned. They were arguably Chu Fan's favorite fictional heroes. Chu Fan quickly saw the introduction regarding the Yang Family Generals. The main general of the Yang family is Yang Yi. His cultivation reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm, only one step away from entering the legendary king realm. The cultivation of the 7th young master of the Yang family also reached the Dharma aspect realm. Among them, the 6th and 4th young masters of the Yang family reached the late Dharma aspect stage. The remaining 5 members, including the eldest and 2nd young masters of the Yang family, reached the middle stage of the Dharma body realm. In other words, this summoning brought 8 individuals at the Dharma aspect realm into Chu Fan's possession, along with an additional 200,000 soldiers. At this moment, adding the troops under Qin Shubao's command, he gained another trump card. After summoning the figures he was satisfied with, Chu Fan directly summoned Yang Yi. As for the 7th young master of the Yang family, he had not yet summoned them. After all, having 7 or 8 Dharma aspect realm experts suddenly appear beside him would certainly attract the attention of others. Moreover, he was leaving Tianjiao City tomorrow, so he naturally chose to summon these people after he had left Tianjiao City. Time quickly moved to the second day. Chu Fan's convoy began moving again, but this time he was not proceeding slowly like when he first traveled toward Tianjiao City. Instead, he led the convoy galloping toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Therefore, the speed of this march far exceeded the previous one. In just half a month, Chu Fan had already returned to the Northern Territory. During this half month, The news that the azure bird of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had won first place on the prodigy ranking spread throughout the entire eastern region. Everyone was shocked that the top spot on the prodigy ranking this time came from the Prince of Jinbei's estate, and from someone they had never heard of, causing everyone to turn their attention toward the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Thus, the news of Chu Fan's return to the Prince of Jinbei's estate naturally also spread. Good. You've truly brought me glory. I never expected the top spot on the Eastern region's prodigy ranking to belong to my Prince of Jinbei's estate. The moment Chu Fan returned, Chu Long came see him. Chu Long was high-spirited at this time, looking as if he had aged backward by several decades. Even Jia Qiming, who was beside Chu Long, was stroking his beard with a smile. He also hadn't expected the winner of the top spot on the prodigy ranking to be a prodigy from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Although he knew Chu Fan would achieve a certain ranking by participating in the prodigy battle, he never imagined that the azure bird beside Chu Fan would win first place on the prodigy ranking, and that Chu Fan would further shake the entire Great Yin imperial family with a single arrow. It could be said that this prodigy battle completely spread the reputation of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The Prince of Jinbei's estate, which previously was only considered a first-rate power in the eastern region, was now being called a top-tier power. It was hailed as a power that could exist on equal footing with the four great dynasties. Grandpa, let me introduce you. This is my senior brother's junior sister, Miss Xiao Zi. Seeing the smile on his grandfather's face, Chu Fan couldn't help but smile too. He then pulled Xiao Zi beside him and introduced her to his grandfather. As for why Xiao Zi chose not to return to the Taishan Holy Land, it was mainly due to her curiosity about Chu Fan. She wanted to stay in the eastern region and see if Chu Fan could unify the entire eastern region. Of course, she also vaguely felt that her opportunity for breakthrough lay within the eastern region. Xiao Zi greets the elder. Xiao Zi slowly stepped forward and spoke to Chu Long. At the same time, she curiously sized up the old man in front of her. After all, this old man had two grandsons who were even more powerful than her. Her senior brother, Chu Chen's cultivation talent far surpassed hers, and Chu Chen had already reached the king realm. As for Chu Fan, who was before her, his cultivation talent was by no means weak. After all, Chu Fan currently possessed the Innate Dao Body, the legendary Innate Dao Body. Furthermore, Chu Fan was cultivating a cultivation technique that she had never even seen. Although Xiao Zi was unclear about the exact level of the cultivation technique Chu Fan practiced. But according to her conjecture, the cultivation technique Chu Fan practiced was at least Saint grade, a cultivation technique only the legendary Holy Land could possess. This was also the reason Xiao Zi was so curious about Chu Fan. After all, a Saint grade cultivation technique was not something a small eastern region could produce. Even the cultivation techniques practiced by the imperial families of the current four great dynasties were merely earth-grade cultivation techniques. Is Chener doing well? Chu Long paused for a moment after hearing Chu Fan's words, his face filled with nostalgia. Then, he urgently began questioning Xiao Zi. After all, nearly 10 years had passed since he last saw his grandson, and his longing for Chu Chen was intense. Even Jia Qiming, standing nearby, looked anxiously at Xiao Zi, wanting to know what stage the talented youth had reached in his growth. Senior brother Chu Chen has already become a quasi-saint son of my Taishan Holy Land. He is currently preparing to participate in the Saint Clan battle 6 months from now. As long as he wins that battle, he can successfully become the saint of my Taishan Holy Land. Furthermore, senior brother Chu Chen broke through to the king realm a while ago. Facing Chu Long, Xiao Zi naturally did not conceal anything and directly stated Chu Chen's current situation. Chener's talent is truly terrifying. Chu Long was profoundly shocked after hearing Xiao Zi's words. Although Chu Long did not know what the king realm was, he was certain that the king realm was the realm above the Dharma aspect realm. His own grandson had already reached the realm above the Dharma aspect realm, which, in his view, was a terrifying existence. Indeed, Chener truly deserves his supreme potential. Jia Qiming also nodded silently and said this. He remembered that Chu Chen's master once said Chu Chen possessed supreme potential, and he now used that exact phrase to evaluate Chu Chen. Senior brother's talent is naturally the strongest. It would be difficult to find someone with talent as powerful as senior brothers in the entire central region, or even the entire. Xiao Zi looked proud after hearing the words of Chu Long and the other man, and she spoke with pride. However, she suddenly remembered that she had an even greater prodigy beside her, and she trailed off mid-sentence. Chapter 120: The Dilemma of the Eastern Territory and the Hesitant Prince, Ouyang Tian. Although Chu Fan's current strength cannot compare to Chu Chen's, he is younger than Chu Chen, and furthermore, he grew up in the eastern region. If Chu Fan had grown up in the Taishan Holy Land like Chu Chen, then Chu Fan would probably have reached the king realm by now. Chu Fan naturally understood Xiao Zi's meaning, so he winked and smiled at her. After returning to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan went to see his mother, and during this time, his father, the Prince of Jinbei, Chu Tianxiong, also returned to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. After all, the front line no longer needed him. After reporting his safe return to his father and mother, Chu Fan set off for the eastern region on the third day after returning to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. And this time he led all the forces he had summoned. This time, Chu Fan planned to directly attack the Great Yin Dynasty from the eastern region, and as long as he captured the eastern region, he would immediately send troops to the capital of the Great Yin Dynasty. Just as Chu Fan was leaving the Prince of Jinbei's estate, the King of Jindong and the Prince of Zhendong's estate was looking at the map in front of him with a worried expression. He hadn't expected Chen Xingji to be so formidable, forcing him into such a predicament in such a short amount of time. Father, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is constantly approaching Zhendong City. If the Great Yin Imperial family does not send reinforcements, Zhendong City will become an isolated city. Just as the King of Zhendong was pondering how to face the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, an exquisitely beautiful woman wearing fiery red armor walked in. A cold aura that made people difficult to approach emanated from the woman, and at the same time, a hint of worry appeared on her stunning face. In her hand, she held a fiery red long spear, giving off a beautiful and heroic air. Phoenix, I'm afraid it will be difficult to wait for the Great Yin Imperial family support. After all, the entire western region has already fallen. The Prince of Jinbei's estate was probably prepared this time and cut off all our communication. It's likely the Great Yin Imperial family hasn't even received our message yet. The King of Zhendong looked helplessly at the woman in fiery red armor before him and said, This woman in fiery red armor was Ouyang Feng, the King of Zhendong's only child. Her cultivation talent was very strong, and she reached the divine power realm at a young age. However, she chose not to participate in this prodigy battle. Otherwise, she would have been ranked high in this prodigy battle. Is the Prince of Jinbei's estate really as powerful as father says? After hearing her father's words, Ouyang Feng asked Ouyang Tian with a look of confusion. Ouyang Tian, who is the King of Zhendong, had reached the spirit roaming realm and could be said to be a peerless prodigy of his generation. Ouyang Feng was the daughter he had with a woman late in his life, so he doted on Ouyang Feng greatly, perhaps also because she was his only descendant. The Prince of Jinbei's estate is definitely formidable. After all, the strength of that heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, has likely reached the spirit roaming realm, and he is accompanied by 3 beings at the perfected Dharma aspect realm. Based on this alone, their strength can shake the entire Great Yin Dynasty, not to mention that the Prince of Jinbei's estate also has famous generals and commanders like Yu Fei and Chen Qingji. After hearing his daughter's words, Ouyang Tian slowly turned his gaze towards the direction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Initially, he truly hadn't paid much attention to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, believing that the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the Prince of Zhendong's estate were similar. But now he realized that the Prince of Jinbei's estate was deeply hidden. Just the 2 peerless commanders, Chen Qingji and Yu Fei, had far exceeded his imagination. Moreover, the Prince of Jinbei's estate also has White Horse Silver Spear Zhao Zilong and the demon god Lu Bu. From the moment these 2 appeared, the King of Zhendong, Ouyang Tian, felt that the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had already surpassed his imagination. In these days, he unexpectedly received news that the cultivation of the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, was suspected to be at the spirit roaming realm, and he was accompanied by 3 beings who had reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. The first place winner of this prodigy battle also came from the Prince of Jinbei's estate, which instantly made him feel that the Prince of Jinbei's estate was not simple. Although Zhendong City was besieged by Chen Qingji, they naturally still received news about the outside world. The King of Zhendong, Ouyang Tian, naturally received news about the prodigy battle and the events that occurred in Tianjiao City. Father, why don't we surrender to the Prince of Jinbei's estate? After all, surrendering is probably our only option now. Ouyang Feng sighed helplessly at this, as she actually never had a good impression of the Great Yin Dynasty. Now that she knew the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was not inferior to the Great Yin Dynasty, Ouyang Feng suddenly felt that perhaps defecting to the Prince of Jinbei's estate was not a bad thing. If we defect to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, then we will advance and retreat together with the Prince of Jinbei's estate. If the Prince of Jinbei's estate fails in this rebellion, what awaits us is the same complete disappearance into the river of history. How could Ouyang Tian not know the meaning behind Ouyang Feng's words? Moreover, this idea had also occurred to him, but he had to consider the interests of the entire Prince of Zhendong's estate. If he defected to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, they would be tied to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. If the Prince of Jinbei's estate were defeated by the Great Yin Dynasty, the prince of Zhendong's estate would disappear from the world along with the prince of Jinbei's estate. Without absolute certainty, he would not defect to the prince of Jinbei's estate. Although the actions of the great Yin dynasty had been excessive towards him, Ouyang Tian also didn't believe the prince of Jinbei's estate would offer him greater official position and power. Just as the king of Zhendong, Ouyang Tian, was hesitating, the emperor of the great Yin dynasty, Murong Li, had slowly stepped onto the territory of the great Yin dynasty with his troops. Upon entering the great Yin dynasty, Murong Li received a piece of unbelievable news. How is this possible? How is this possible? How could the prince of Jinbei's estate have acted so quickly in just over 2 months? Murong Li stared blankly toward the northern region, his eyes filled with disbelief. The news he received was none other than that the prince of Jinbei's estate had captured the western region and besieged the eastern region within these 2 months. It must be known that these were 2 of the 4 regions of the great Yin dynasty. If the prince of Jinbei's estate captured the eastern region as well, the territory held by the prince of Jinbei's estate within the great Yin dynasty would surpass that of the great Yin imperial family. At that point, it would be even more difficult for them to deal with the prince of Jinbei's estate, especially judging by the current actions of the prince of Jinbei's estate. They clearly intend to use this opportunity to completely overthrow the great Yin dynasty. We absolutely cannot let them have the chance to capture Zhendong City. Otherwise, it will be difficult for my great Yin dynasty to reclaim the eastern region. After a long while, Murong Li slowly recovered from his shock, then looked towards the eastern region and made up his mind. Chapter 121, General Yang Tianzhan of the Great Yin Dynasty. Hei Bai Xianjian and Zhu Ke meet Yang Tianzhan. Murong Li was very clear at this moment. If Zhendong City were taken by the prince of Jinbei's estate again, the entire eastern region would completely fall, and it would be difficult for them to take it back later. More importantly, if Zhendong City fell, then more than half of the great Yin dynasty's territory would completely become the territory of the prince of Jinbei's estate. At that time, the strength of the prince of Jinbei's estate would reach an even more terrifying level, and even if the great Yin imperial family had the ability to reclaim these lands, they would have to pay a certain price. Thinking of this, Murong Li immediately rushed back to the imperial capital of the great Yin dynasty and promptly convened a court session. When Murong Li left the great Yin dynasty to head to Tianjiao City, he had entrusted the decision-making authority of the great Yin dynasty to Crown Prince Murong Tian. As the crown prince of the great Yin dynasty, Murong Tian's strength was naturally not to be underestimated, but at this moment, he seemed somewhat helpless. After all, although he had the authority to make decisions, Murong Li had not given him military power, so even if he wanted to support the eastern region, he could do nothing. After Murong Li returned to the imperial capital, he immediately issued an order for the great General Yang Tianzhan to lead 400,000 troops to reinforce the eastern region. Yang Tianzhan was one of the 3 great generals of the great Yin dynasty, and when he was young, Yang Tianzhan was equally famous as the prince of Jinbei, Chu Long. They were once called the twin prodigies of the great Yin dynasty, as both men came from the general's residence. I never expected that after several decades, my first deployment of troops would be against you. The great General Yang Tianzhan, upon receiving the order, looked in the direction of the prince of Jinbei's estate and spoke slowly, his eyes filled with memories of the past. Father, I heard that the commander of the prince of Jinbei's estate this time is Chun Qingji. It is said that his command ability has reached a level that ordinary people cannot fathom. Father, you must be careful of this person on this expedition. Yang Wu, Yang Tianzhan's son, looked at Yang Tianzhan with a hint of worry in his eyes. These past few days, he had also heard rumors about Chun Qingji. It could be said that Chun Qingji leading the prince of Jinbei's estate army to attack the eastern region was like a myth. A mere 100,000 white robe army actually captured dozens of cities in a matter of months, completely controlling the majority of the eastern region. Such strength was already beyond what ordinary people could compare to. Moreover, who knew if those 100,000 white robe army troops were the true trump card of the prince of Jinbei's estate? For example, the 100,000 Yu family army that captured the western region only revealed themselves during this great battle. Furthermore, the 100,000 troops led by Zhang Liao had not yet appeared. As the son of the great general, Yang Wu naturally saw the entire battlefield very clearly. That is not what worries me. What worries me is that your majesty will likely seize control of our entire general's residence while I am leading the army, as your majesty would not so easily entrust 400,000 troops into my hands. Yang Tianzhan shook his head after hearing Yang Wu's words. His greatest worry was not Chun Qingji in the eastern region. As a general, dying on the battlefield was nothing shameful. But he worried that Murong Li would seize control of the entire general's residence while he was away leading the troops. At that point, he would truly have no way back. Moreover, if he perished on the battlefield, the entire general's residence might be buried alongside him. Yang Tianzhan understood the temperament of Your Majesty very well. Father, rest assured, your son will definitely protect the general's residence. Upon hearing Yang Tianzhan's words, Yang Wu instantly understood, and he looked at Yang Tianzhan with firm eyes. Ha ha ha! If Moore only insists on executing the entire general's residence, I wonder if General Yang can resist? Just then, an abrupt voice sounded from behind the two men. Who is that? Get out here, this general! Hearing the sudden voice, Yang Tianzhan immediately fixed his gaze on the empty space behind them. At the same time, a trace of killing intent and worry appeared in Yang Tianzhan's eyes. After all, what they had just said had already offended the Emperor of Great Yin of the Great Yin dynasty. If this news reached the ears of the Emperor of Great Yin, their entire Yang family would be annihilated. Yang Wu also stared solemnly in the direction from which the voice came. I am Black and White Mysterious Sword of the Net of Luo. Greetings, old General Yang and General Yang. Under the gaze of the two men, a man dressed in a black robe, with two precious swords, one black and one white, slung at his waist, slowly appeared beside them. At the same time, a sinister smile hung on his face, making him look like a venomous snake hidden in shadows. Having been in this world for nearly a year, Black and White Mysterious Sword cultivation had also achieved a breakthrough to the late Xinyu realm, just one step away from entering the Xinyu Perfect realm. What kind of force is the Net of Luo? Why has this old general never heard of it? Yang Tianzhan looked at Black and White Mysterious Sword with confusion after hearing his words. Although the Net of Luo had existed in this world for almost a year, aside from the Prince of Jinbei's estate, no one else knew of its existence. Even those who were aware of the Net of Luo's existence only knew that the Prince of Jinbei's estate possessed a mysterious organization. The Net of Luo is the sharp blade in the young master's hands. He said that old general and general should understand now. Black and White Mysterious Sword spoke slowly after hearing Yang Tianzhan's voice, his eyes filled with adoration when he mentioned the young master. You are that mysterious force belonging to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. How could Yang Tianzhan not understand the identity of the person before him now? A look of surprise appeared on his face. As an existence at the Xinyu Perfect realm, he could naturally sense the cultivation of the person before him, which was the reason for his surprise. After all, a cultivator in the late Xinyu realm was actually a subordinate of that legendary martial arts fanatic. Yes and no, because that mysterious force of my Prince of Jinbei's estate is not just them, but also us. Just then, another voice slowly drifted in, and a woman dressed in a red embroidered uniform slowly appeared beside Black and White Mysterious Sword. I didn't expect the Net of Luo to be so fast, appearing at the general's residence so early. A playful smile appeared on the woman's face as she looked at Black and White Mysterious Sword. The speed of the embroidered uniform guard is not slow either, only one step behind me. Black and White Mysterious Sword looked at the woman before him without any expression, instead gazing slowly toward Yang Tianzhan. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Vermilion Bird, one of the 4 commanders of the embroidered uniform guard under the young master. The woman ignored Black and White Mysterious Sword's expression and spoke slowly toward Yang Tianzhan. I didn't expect the Prince of Jinbei's estate to value this old general so highly, sending out 2 spirit roaming realm experts. But is the Prince of Jinbei's estate not afraid of you 2 perishing here? Yang Tianzhan spoke slowly, looking at Vermilion Bird and Black and White Mysterious Sword, though the shock in his eyes was hard to conceal. Chapter 122: The Departure of the Vermilion Bird Duo and the Helpless Yang Tianzhan. After Yang Tianzhan finished speaking, he fully unleashed the aura of his Xinyu Perfect realm. It was as if he wanted to threaten Black and White Mysterious Sword and Vermilion Bird. Does old General Yang think he can keep the 2 of us here? Vermilion Bird showed no concern when she felt the Xinyu Perfect realm aura from Yang Tianzhan. Instead, she looked at Yang Tianzhan with a playful expression and said, "We didn't come to old General's place this time to fight him. Instead, we came to save old General and the General's residence." After speaking, Vermilion Bird leisurely looked at Yang Tianzhan. She gracefully approached Yang Tianzhan and continued to speak softly. Why would this old general need your Prince of Jinbei's estate to save him? Moreover, this old general is a great general of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Who can kill this old general? Yang Tianzhan naturally understood Vermilion Bird's meaning, but at this moment, he certainly couldn't admit it. Instead, he looked at Vermilion Bird with a solemn expression. Yang Wu, behind him, also looked at Vermilion Bird with a grave expression. Although his cultivation was far weaker than Vermilion Bird's, what could he do in this situation? Old general, if you go to war this time, you will definitely lose. After all, the entire eastern region is already within the grasp of my Prince of Jinbei's estate. If old general leads these 400,000 troops to a great defeat on the battlefield, What do you think Morongli will do to the general's residence? Vermilion Bird looked at Yang Tianzhan and spoke softly, her smiling expression still fixed on Yang Tianzhan. As for Black and White Mysterious Sword, he stood silently to the side. Although their net of Luo and the embroidered uniform guard had always vied for the top position, he would not disrupt Vermilion Bird's plan. After all, he would not ruin anything that benefited his young master. After Yang Tianzhan heard Vermilion Bird's words, a look of worry instantly appeared on his face, because what Vermilion Bird said was exactly what he was worried about. If he really lost on the battlefield, then given the current emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty's methods, he would definitely slaughter his general's residence. After all, Yang Tianzhan understood his emperor very well. What if this old general defeats the prince of Zhenbei's estate on the battlefield? After all, this old general is not just an empty name. Yang Tianzhan took a deep breath and said to Vermilion Bird. It must be said that he was somewhat tempted at this moment. Old General Yang can try and see if the army in old General Yang's hands is stronger, or the army in my Prince of Zhenbei's estate's hands is stronger. Of course, that depends on whether old General Yang dares to gamble. Vermilion Bird's smile deepened after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words. At this moment, she had almost grasped Yang Tianzhan's thoughts. It was not them who were in a passive position now, but Yang Tianzhan. Even if their Prince of Zhenbei's estate's army lost, there wouldn't be too many problems, but if Yang Tianzhan lost this expedition, then the entire general's residence would cease to exist. Also, old General Yang, why do you think my Prince of Zhenbei's estate's army has besieged Jindong City for so long without taking it? Just as Yang Tianzhan was still thinking, Vermilion Bird threw out another bomb, instantly causing a stunned expression to appear on Yang Tianzhan's face. So, your plan is to ambush the Great Yin Imperial family's reinforcements, thereby reducing the Great Yin Imperial family's strength? After hearing Vermilion Bird's words, Yang Tianzhan's calm expression could no longer be contained and instantly turned into one of shock. At this moment, he also had a guess in his heart. He had originally thought that the king of Jindong was able to hold on until now. But if he understood the meaning of the person in front of him, it was likely that the king of Jindong himself did not know why he could defend Jindong City. That's right. With our strength, taking Jindong City is very simple. However, for our Prince of Zhenbei's estate to completely take over the entire Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, we must first deal with the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty's army. And the time when they reinforce Jindong City is our best opportunity. Vermilion Bird's words contained 5 parts truth and 5 parts falsehood, and her words almost convinced Black and White Mysterious Sword behind her. Although their Prince of Zhenbei's estate had besieged the entire Jindong City, their ultimate goal was not to eliminate the Great Yin Imperial family's army, but to incorporate the entire Prince of Zhendong's estate into their control. After all, even though only Jindong City in the entire eastern region was still holding out, the army in Jindong City was not small, which is why Chun Qingji did not choose to attack by force. Then, if this old general reports this news to your majesty, wouldn't your Prince of Zhenbei's estate's plan fail? Aren't you afraid? Yang Tianzhan still wanted to struggle a little at this moment, so he slowly said to Vermilion Bird and Black and White Mysterious Sword. His son, Yang Wu, watched Vermilion Bird and Black and White Mysterious Sword with a struggling and worried expression from behind. Old General Yang, do you think Morongli would believe what you say? Moreover, if Morongli asks where old General Yang got this information, how would old General Yang explain? Would old General Yang tell Morongli that we told you? In that case, perhaps old General Yang wouldn't even need to go to war and would be confined to the general's residence, and even the entire general's residence would be annihilated because of old General Yang's decision. Vermilion Bird chuckled softly after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words, then looked at Yang Tianzhan with a playful expression. Although Yang Tianzhan said that, Vermilion Bird didn't believe he would dare to do it. And even if Yang Tianzhan dared to do it, it wouldn't cause too much loss to their Prince of Zhenbei's estate. Old General Yang, please consider carefully. I will return tonight to await old General Yang's reply. I hope old General Yang will not disappoint me. Vermilion Bird smiled at the thoughtful Yang Tianzhan, then transformed into a phantom and disappeared from the spot, but her voice softly reached Yang Tianzhan and Yang Wu's ears. Tonight, my net of Luo will also descend upon the general's residence again. Black and White Mysterious Sword, seeing Vermilion Bird leave, also knew that today's matters were concluded. So, he coldly looked at Yang Tianzhan and Yang Wu and said, after speaking, he too transformed into an afterimage and disappeared from the general's residence. It wasn't until Vermilion Bird and Black and White Mysterious Sword had completely vanished that Yang Tianzhan recovered from his daze. I didn't expect the Prince of Zhenbei's estate to set such a trap for this old general as soon as they arrived. This old general has no choice but to jump into it. Yang Tianzhan leisurely looked towards the northern region. At this moment, it was as if he saw Prince of Zhenbei, Chu Long, staring at him with a mischievous smile. At the same time, he also understood in his heart that he seemed to have no other choice. "Father, how should we deal with what comes next?" After Yang Wu heard his father's words, a worried expression also appeared on his face, because he knew that their general's residence seemed to have no other choice. Chapter 123 Yang Tianzhan's Inner Struggle. Yang Xuyan, the talented daughter of the general's mansion. Yang Tianzhan looked at the worried expression on his son's face and waved his hand helplessly. "Since they are coming back tonight, let's decide tonight." Then Yang Tianzhan slowly said this to Yang Wu. After speaking, he left the back courtyard. Soon, Yang Tianzhan appeared in the main courtyard of the general's residence. "Grandpa, you're here." As soon as Yang Tianzhan appeared in the main courtyard, a cute little girl ran up to him, hugging Yang Tianzhan's leg, her two big eyes staring intently at him. Did you study well today?" Seeing the little girl in front of him, the trace of worry on Yang Tianzhan's face instantly vanished, replaced by doting affection for the little girl. "Grandpa, you learned many useful things with Big Sister today." This little girl was Yang Tianzhan's granddaughter, Yang Yu. After hearing her grandfather's words, she looked at Yang Tianzhan with a proud expression and said, it was as if she wanted Yang Tianzhan to praise her. "Ha ha ha, truly amazing. As expected of Grandpa's good granddaughter." Yang Tianzhan bent down, picked Yang Yu up, and praised her while laughing heartily. However, the expression on his face did not entirely cover the worry in his heart. Why did you run over to Grandpa again?" Just then, a pleasant voice slowly drifted over from the front, followed by an exquisitely beautiful woman in a long white dress slowly walking out. "Big Sister, Grandpa is about to go off on an expedition. So you wanted to come and see Grandpa?" After hearing the woman's words, a hint of evasion appeared on Yang Yu's face. She then stuck out her pale neck and spoke to the beautiful woman who had just emerged. "Since you know Grandpa is going on an expedition, don't disturb him, understand?" The beautiful woman slowly walked over to Yang Yu, bowed to Yang Tianzhan, and then spoke softly to Yang Yu. "Xuyan, since Yu wants to play, let her play for a while." Yang Tianzhan spoke slowly at this moment, but his brows were tightly furrowed. At this moment, it was as if he saw the general's residence turning into a purgatory. "Grandpa, are you worried about this expedition?" Yang Xuyan naturally saw Yang Tianzhan's tightly furrowed brow at a glance, so she gently asked him. "Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from you. If only your father were as smart as you." Yang Tianzhan looked at Yang Xuyan, who seemed to have already guessed something, and spoke slowly. Yang Tianzhan was extremely satisfied with this granddaughter of his. It could be said that Yang Xuyan's intellect surpassed that of many marshals. Even his son, Yang Wu, could not compare to Yang Xuyan's mind. "Grandpa, are you worried that the Prince of Jinbei's estate will ambush you?" After hearing Yang Tianzhan's words, Yang Xuyan continued to speak to him. "Yes, I am worried that if this expedition fails, something will happen to my general's residence." Yang Tianzhan did not tell Yang Xuyan the news that Vermilion Bird and the others had arrived at the general's residence. Instead, he spoke to Yang Xuyan with a helpless expression. If Grandpa goes on the expedition, then naturally, failure is impossible. Yang Xuyan knew that her grandfather was hiding something from her, but she did not point it out at this moment. Instead, she looked at Yang Tianzhan with a determined expression. Then Grandpa will rely on Xuyan's auspicious words. Yang Tianzhan naturally knew he couldn't hide things from Yang Xuyan, but he still didn't reveal anything at this time. Instead, he smiled at Yang Xuyan and spoke. Afterward, Yang Tianzhan carried Yang Yu back to his courtyard, while Yang Xuyan bid farewell to Yang Tianzhan. It seems the Prince of Jinbei's estate has already taken action. Otherwise, Grandpa wouldn't show such anxiety. Returning to her own courtyard, Yang Xuyan looked worriedly at the courtyard where her grandfather was staying. At the same time, she had a guess in her heart. As one of the three great talented women of the imperial capital, Yang Xuyan's intelligence was in no way inferior to Yang Tianzhan's. The moment she received the imperial edict, Yang Xuyan understood that if her grandfather failed on the battlefield, the entire general's residence might be executed along with him. However, Yang Xuyan also knew that her grandfather had no choice but to accept this imperial edict. And from Yang Tianzhan's expression just now, Yang Xuyan inferred that someone from the Prince of Jinbei's estate must have come to see her grandfather. Otherwise, Yang Tianzhan would not be so worried. I just don't know what Grandpa will choose. Furthermore, given our current situation, leaving the imperial capital is very difficult. Does the Prince of Jinbei's estate even have the strength to allow all of us to leave the imperial capital? After thinking for a while, Yang Xuyan slowly cast her gaze toward the direction of the Northern Territory. At this moment, she began to grow curious about the legendary heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. News about the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, had been constantly reaching the imperial capital during this time, so she had naturally heard about the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate setting out. Yang Xuyin had not expected that the Northern Territory prodigy, whom the imperial capital called a frog in a well, would possess such strength. Although Chu Fan was once the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate and was called the Northern Territory prodigy, his strength had not been recognized by the imperial capital. It could be said that the prodigies in the imperial capital believed that the strength of the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan, could not even be called that of a prodigy. Everyone believed that Chu Fan was merely a frog in a well. Even she, one of the 3 great talented women of the imperial capital, thought Chu Fan was nothing special. But when the specific details of the heavenly prodigy battle arrived, she realized that this heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate was extraordinary. The strength Chu Fan displayed alone had already reached the spirit roaming realm. How could such a person be simple? Furthermore, this heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate had 3 existences at the perfected Dharma aspect realm by his side. Yang Xuyin naturally knew about the existence of the Dharma aspect realm, and also knew that a powerhouse of the Dharma aspect realm could change the fate of a dynasty. With 3 existences at the perfected Dharma aspect realm supporting the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, who knew if he could completely overthrow the entire Great Yin dynasty in this war. Moreover, Yang Xuyin didn't believe that Chu Fan had truly revealed all of his strength. One must know that besides these 3 existences at the perfected Dharma aspect realm, Chu Fan's subordinates also included White Horse Silver Spear, Zhao Zilong, and Demon God Incarnate Lu Bu, both of whom had reached the Dharma aspect realm. Chu Fan, I truly look forward to meeting you and seeing if you are as mysterious as the legends say. After a long while, Yang Xuyin slowly retracted her gaze and muttered to herself. However, at this moment, Yang Xuyin's eyes were filled with anticipation. She was highly confident that she would meet the heir of the prince of Jinbei's estate, Chu Fan. Of course, this confidence also stemmed from her having seen through Yang Tianzhan's thoughts. Chapter 124 Yang Tianzhan's Decision, the General's Mansion's Preparations. Night quickly fell. At this time, Yang Tianzhan, inside the general's residence, was sitting in the courtyard, feeling restless, but he had already come to a decision. I didn't expect old General Yang to be so relaxed. It's so late, and yet you're still waiting for the 2 of us in the courtyard. Just then, a soft laugh echoed from the dark night sky. Immediately after, vermilion bird and black and white mysterious sword slowly appeared before Yang Tianzhan. I can submit to the prince of Jinbei's estate, but you must guarantee the safety of my general's residence. Otherwise, even if this old man dies, I will wage war against the prince of Jinbei's estate. Yang Tianzhan looked directly at Vermilion Bird and stated his terms. After half a day of contemplation, he had realized that his best possible outcome now was to submit to the prince of Jinbei's estate. However, before submitting to the prince of Jinbei's estate, he needed to resolve the issues concerning the general's residence. Otherwise, the entire general's residence would become his liability, and he did not wish for his actions to cause the ruin of his family. Furthermore, the general's residence housed his own family. As long as old General Yang proceeds according to the Emperor of Great Yan's plan, our embroidered uniform guard and net of Luo will ensure that everyone from the general's residence is taken out of the imperial capital of Great Yan, which belongs to the Great Yan imperial family, at the first opportunity. Please rest assured of this, old General Yang. Vermilion Bird had not expected Yang Tianzhan to agree so quickly, but to put Yang Tianzhan at ease, she still gave him her assurance. How do you intend to get the people of the general's residence out of the imperial capital of Great Yan? Although Yang Tianzhan was inclined to believe Vermilion Bird after hearing her words, he dared not gamble the lives of everyone in the general's residence. My embroidered uniform guard will dispatch 2 spirit roaming realm experts and 10 grotto heaven realm cultivators to protect the general's residence on their journey to the prince of Jinbei's estate. What is General Yang's opinion? Vermilion Bird spoke slowly after hearing Yang Tianzhan's question, and she exuded confidence. My net of Luo will likewise dispatch 2 spirit roaming realm experts and 10 grotto heaven realm cultivators. Black and White Mysterious Sword spoke calmly after hearing Vermilion Bird's statement. Although he was not the main orchestrator this time, the net of Luo had participated in the plan, so he naturally could not just retreat. Although the people you are sending possess great strength, what if the Great Yan imperial family immobilizes a peerless Dharma aspect realm expert? Yang Tianzhan was utterly stunned after hearing the words of the 2. He had not expected the prince of Jinbei's estate to be able to dispatch such formidable forces. Keep in mind that merely protecting the general's residence on their way to the prince of Jinbei's estate required the dispatch of 4 spirit roaming realm experts and 20 grotto heaven realm cultivators. However, Yang Tianzhan was still uneasy, as their current location was the imperial capital of Great Yan, belonging to the Great Yan imperial family. He did not believe the imperial capital would simply watch the general's residence depart without reacting. Old General Yang, you underestimate my embroidered uniform guard and the net of Luo. If we wish to leave, the great Yin imperial family will absolutely fail to discover us. Upon hearing Yang Tianzhan's concern, Vermilion Bird smiled faintly, and a trace of disdain for the great Yin dynasty was visible on her face. In fact, Vermilion Bird spoke the truth. Taking the general's residence out of the imperial capital of Great Yin, belonging to the Great Yin dynasty, was an easy task for them. As long as you can ensure the general's residence leaves the imperial capital of Great Yin safely, then this old man will submit to the Prince of Junbei's estate. Seeing the utterly confident expression on Vermilion Bird's face, Yang Tianzhan finally made his decision. He looked at Vermilion Bird before him with a resolute expression and spoke. Very well. Please, old General Yang, go make your arrangements. Tomorrow at noon, the experts of my embroidered uniform guard and the net of Luo will personally escort the people of the general's residence out of the imperial capital of Great Yin. Upon seeing Yang Tianzhan agree, Vermilion Bird did not waste any time. She swiftly vanished from the general's residence, though her voice still faintly reached Yang Tianzhan's ears. Black and white mysterious sword, on the other side, vanished from the general's residence at the same time, like an indifferent assassin. Furthermore, he did not utter a single word upon leaving, as if the preceding discussion had nothing to do with him. The recent discussion truly held little relevance for him. After all, Black and White Mysterious Sword was an assassin for the net of Luo, and perhaps he was stronger than Vermilion Bird when it came to the matter of killing. However, when it came to negotiating terms, he could not compare to Vermilion Bird. Yang Tianzhan looked in the direction the two had left and sighed softly. At the same time, he understood that from this moment forward, he had aligned himself with the Prince of Junbei's estate. The early morning sunlight quickly illuminated the continent. After a night had passed, the resolute Yang Tianzhan summoned the residents of the general's residence to the estate's secret room. Among these people were Yang Tianzhan's son, Yang Wu, and several of Yang Tianzhan's grandsons and granddaughters. Naturally, these were all immediate relatives of Yang Tianzhan. The main reason I summoned you today is regarding the major event that the general's residence is about to face. Seeing everyone below looking at him with expressions of curiosity, Yang Tianzhan slowly began to speak. Father, did you agree to their request? After hearing his father's words, Yang Wu immediately stood up and questioned Yang Tianzhan with a worried expression. He had not expected his father to actually agree to the Prince of Junbei's estate. However, what worried him more was the general's residence. After all, he and Yang Tianzhan could use the pretext of war to travel to the Prince of Junbei's estate, but it would not be so simple for the other members of the general's residence. They promised me they could safely transport all of you to the Northern Territory. This was the precondition for my agreement. Yang Tianzhan naturally understood Yang Wu's concerns, so he waved his hand at Yang Wu and replied. After hearing the conversation between Yang Tianzhan and Yang Wu, Yang Shuyan realized that her internal suspicions had likely been confirmed. Even old Madame Yang, who had remained silent, now looked toward Yang Tianzhan with a worried gaze. I announced that from this moment onward, we will submit to the Prince of Junbei's estate. Everyone, return and pack your belongings. Someone will escort you away from the general's residence and toward the Northern Territory at noon today. Yang Tianzhan ignored everyone's gazes, stood up, and immediately issued the command. As the head of the general's residence, he naturally possessed the authority to execute this decision. Your granddaughter understands. Yang Shuyan was the first to react, as this matter had long been within her expectations. She slowly stood up, bowed toward Yang Tianzhan, and spoke. Your grandson understands. Yang Hu, Yang Shuyan's older brother, also reacted immediately. He likewise stood up, bowed toward Yang Tianzhan, and spoke. The others naturally did not object to Yang Tianzhan's decision. After all, Yang Tianzhan's reputation within the general's residence was immense, so no one dared to oppose his ruling. Next, Yang Tianzhan instructed everyone to return and prepare. At the same time, he remained in the general's residence, anticipating the arrival of Vermilion Bird and the others. He also wanted to know exactly what method Vermilion Bird intended to use to escort everyone from the general's residence out of the imperial capital of Great Yin. Chapter 125, A Clever Substitution. Yang Tianzhan deploys troops. Following Yang Tianzhan's order, the general's residence became busy. They knew that after leaving this time, they would not return to the general's residence, so everyone was packing their belongings. Of course, under Yang Tianzhan's arrangements, the busy general's residence was not discovered by anyone. Time slowly drifted to noon, and the people of the general's residence were ready. The group from the general's residence preparing to leave were all waiting in the secret chamber of the general's residence for Vermilion Bird and the others to arrive. Yang Tianzhan gazed ahead thoughtfully a look of emotion on his face. He knew that starting from this day, he would no longer be the great general of the Great Yin Dynasty. He would be the rebel despised by everyone. But for the sake of the entire general's residence, he could only do this, as the general's residence was his greatest concern. Time passed slowly, bit by bit, and many people began to feel uneasy. After all, they were packed and ready, but the people meant to receive them had not arrived. However, they naturally dared not act rashly in front of Yang Tianzhan. Just as everyone was waiting expectantly, Yang Tianzhan's helpless expression suddenly cleared, and he stared intently toward a direction in front of the secret chamber. Then, dozens of figures appeared there, two of the familiar figures being Vermilion Bird and Black and White Mysterious Sword. It seems old General Yang truly did not disappoint us. Vermilion Bird slowly walked toward Yang Tianzhan with the figures behind it, while its gaze swept over the members of the Yang family below. The rest of the matter will be handed over to the Net of Luo. After all, the Net of Luo holds absolute authority in this regard. After speaking to Yang Tianzhan, Vermilion Bird spoke to Black and White Mysterious Sword beside it. Having finished speaking, it stood aside, completely ignoring Yang Tianzhan and the others. Black and White Mysterious Sword naturally understood Vermilion Bird's meaning, so he waved his hand toward the dozens of men in black behind him. These men in black then quickly appeared beside the members of the Yang family. As these men in black moved continuously, a shocking scene quickly appeared before everyone. The men in black swiftly removed their black robes, and simultaneously, their faces began to change. In just a moment, the appearances of these men in black became identical to those of the Yang family members. If the chi surrounding the men in black had not been different, Yang Tianzhan would have been unable to distinguish the true identities of these men in black from his Yang family members. You have the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to mimic their chi. Black and White Mysterious Sword spoke to this group of Luo Wang assassins who had already transformed into the Yang family members. After his words fell, this group of assassins, who had transformed into the Yang family members, began to mimic the Yang family members' chi. In just a short while, the Net of Luo's assassins had completely mastered the chi of the Yang family members. At this moment, Yang Tianzhan was completely shocked. He found it difficult to distinguish the true identities of the Yang family members below from this group of men in black. Old General Yang should no longer worry now. As long as they remain in the general's residence, they will not attract the attention of the Emperor of Great Yin. After all, the people of the general's residence have never left the general's residence. Vermilion Bird also felt emotional looking at the achievements of the Net of Luo. Although the Embroidered Uniform Guard was considered a top-tier intelligence agency under heaven, it still had shortcomings when compared to the Net of Luo. For example, in the area of impersonation, the Embroidered Uniform Guard could not compare to the Net of Luo. I didn't expect the Prince of Zhenbei's estate to have so many extraordinary individuals. It seems my earlier worries were unnecessary. Yang Tianzhan also recovered at this moment. If he had been worried about the people of the general's residence initially, he no longer needed to worry now. After all, with these mysterious people from the Prince of Zhenbei's estate present, who would believe that the Yang family members of the general's residence had left the general's residence? Since that is the case, then please let the people of the general's residence depart. Vermilion Bird nodded after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words. It then led the Yang family members slowly out of the general's residence among the remaining people it had brought. Their departure from the general's residence did not attract anyone's attention, because before arriving at the general's residence, the Net of Luo and the Embroidered Uniform Guard had eliminated all the spies outside the general's residence. Therefore, no one discovered Vermilion Bird and the others leading the Yang family members away from the general's residence. It could even be said that even members of the Great Yin imperial family believed the people of the general's residence were still inside the general's residence. It was not until the third day after Vermilion Bird and the others led the general's residence members away that Yang Tianzhan, the commander-in-chief, and General Yang Wu led 400,000 troops toward the eastern borders. It was not that the Great Yin dynasty was slow in deploying troops, but gathering 400,000 soldiers required a certain amount of time, not to mention supplies like food and fodder. Therefore, a few days was already the fastest possible speed. Otherwise, mobilization usually required half a month of preparation, and sometimes the preparation time for deployment could even reach half a year. Leading the army out of the imperial capital of the Great Yin dynasty, Yang Tianzhan glanced thoughtfully at the imperial capital behind him. Perhaps others did not know why he displayed such an expression, but his son Yang Wu knew that his father was bidding farewell to the imperial capital. Subsequently, the 400,000 troops rushed directly toward the eastern borders. Have Yang Tianzhan and his son Yang Wu left? Inside the Great Yin imperial palace, Mu only asked the eunuch beside him with a solemn expression. Reporting to Your Majesty, Yang Tianzhan and Yang Wu have already led the army away. Furthermore, when Yang Tianzhan left, he looked back at the imperial capital with some reluctance. Perhaps he is aware of the difficulty of this great battle. Upon hearing Murong Li's words, the eunuch respectfully replied and also informed Murong Li of the expression Yang Tianzhan had when he departed. If this great battle were truly that simple, we wouldn't need to provide support. We only hope Yang Tianzhan can hold back the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Murong Li naturally knew the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. It could even be said that the purpose of sending Yang Tianzhan to war this time was solely to delay the Prince of Jinbei's estate's army. Murong Li felt no distress whatsoever regarding the 400,000 troops led by Yang Tianzhan. After all, those 400,000 troops were the Yang family army of the great General Yang Tianzhan, so Murong Li naturally did not consider them to be the true army of the great Yin dynasty. As the calculating emperor of the great Yin dynasty, he wished he could grasp all power into his own hands. Go and instruct the spies to secretly control the general's residence. Do not allow anyone from the Yang family to leave the imperial capital. Murong Li turned around coldly and commanded the eunuch before him. At this moment, he still did not know that the people of the general's residence had already been relocated by the embroidered uniform guard and the net of Luo. Chapter 126 Chu Fan arrives outside Jindong City. News brought by the embroidered uniform guard. After hearing Murong Li's words, the eunuch urgently left the main hall, leaving Murong Li alone, his gaze drifting eastward. After quite a while, a pallor appeared on Murong Li's face, and at the same time, a streak of fresh blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. This damned power still cannot be erased. Chu Fan, the next time we meet, I will absolutely ensure you die without a burial place. After wiping away the blood from his mouth, Murong Li slowly entered the back courtyard, his silhouette appearing extremely desolate. Just as Yang Tianzhan mobilized his troops, Chu Fan, on the other side, also led his forces to the area outside Jindong City. Upon arriving outside Jindong City, the first thing he did was go to meet Qin Qingji. We pay our respects to your highness. Qin Qingji and Zhao Zilong's men all came before Chu Fan and bowed to him. Although they had not captured Jindong City was now surrounded by them. All of you rise. Chu Fan waved his hand to the crowd before him, and then, led by Azure Bird, walked directly to the marshal's seat and sat down. Qin Qingji, report on the situation in the eastern region. Chu Fan, having sat down, slowly looked toward Qin Qingji. Although the existence of the net of Luo meant Chu Fan generally knew the situation in the eastern region, he still wanted to hear the specific, true circumstances from Qin Qingji. Reporting to this heir apparent, the eastern region can be completely captured, save for Jindong City. Inside Jindong City, besides Ouyang Tian, a powerful expert in the spirit roaming realm, there are two other masters of the spirit roaming realm. More importantly, Jindong City currently holds 200,000 troops, all of whom Ouyang Tian brought from. Qin Qingji slowly detailed the situation in the eastern region. The circumstances he described were roughly the same as what the net of Luo had informed Chu Fan. Chu Fan now fully understood the situation in Jindong City. It could be said that they could indeed forcibly take all of Jindong City, but doing so would result in heavy losses for them. Their current remaining forces consisted only of the 100,000 White Robe Army and the White Horse Volunteers under Zhao Zilong. Jindong City, however, possessed 200,000 troops. Furthermore, Jindong City's defensive works were excellent, so they would have to pay a certain price if they wished to enter Jindong City. The important thing was that for the past few days, the king of Jindong, Ouyang Tian, seemed completely unconcerned about the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside. No matter how the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate provoked them, no one from Jindong City came out. This heir apparent has brought 200,000 troops this time. How long will it take to capture Jindong City if this army is combined with yours? Chu Fan pondered for a moment before speaking to Qin Qingji. This time, he had led the Yang family generals and the Yang family army to the eastern region, so he could deploy 200,000 troops at any time. As for the 200,000 troops led by Qin Shu Bao, Chu Fan did not intend for them to appear yet. Even if they captured the eastern region now, the southern region still remained, so Chu Fan planned to send Qin Shu Bao and Luo Chang to the southern region. If we add the 200,000 troops brought by this heir apparent, this subordinate will only need 7 days to capture Jindong City. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, Qin Qingji immediately became excited. He had not expected that his own heir apparent would bring 200,000 troops this time. With the addition of these 200,000 troops, he could easily capture Jindong City. Reporting to this heir apparent, the embroidered uniform guard requests an audience. Just as Chu Fan was about to summon this army, a voice slowly drifted in from outside the tent. The embroidered uniform guard requesting an audience now likely means that something important has happened. Let them in. Although Chu Fan did not know the purpose of the embroidered uniform guard's visit, coming to see him like this surely meant a major event was about to occur. Jinui Thousand Household Commander pays respects to this heir apparent. After a few breaths, Jinui, wearing an embroidered robe, quickly came before Chu Fan and bowed to him, his expression filled with admiration. What matter requires reporting? Chu Fan waved his hand at the Jinui Thousand Household Commander before him and inquired, a flash of curiosity appearing in his eyes. The others also looked curiously at the Jinui before them. Lord Vermilion Bird successfully won over Yang Tianzhan, the great general of the Great Yin Dynasty, to the faction of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. This great general is currently leading 400,000 troops to defect to us. The Jinui Thousand Household Commander revealed the news to Chu Fan without any reservation. After speaking, he lowered his head, awaiting Chu Fan's instructions. Vermilion Bird did well. It seems we can launch a full-scale attack against the entire Great Yin Dynasty. Chu Fan had not expected Vermilion Bird's speed to be so swift, resolving the matter of this great general of the Great Yin Dynasty in just a few days. How much longer until Yang Tianzhan arrives at Jindong City? Chu Fan already had a plan in mind, so he began questioning the embroidered uniform guard before him. Reporting to this heir apparent, Yang Tianzhan's army will take about 10 days to reach Jindong City. The embroidered uniform guard quickly informed Chu Fan of the time frame. 10 days, that's enough. After hearing the embroidered uniform guard's words, Chu Fan slowly turned his gaze toward the southern region. If he had previously intended to summon the 200,000 troops of the Yang family, Chu Fan now knew exactly where to summon them. Jindong City no longer required these 200,000 troops, so why not summon them to the southern region? More importantly, the attention of the entire Great Yin Dynasty was currently focused on the eastern region. The defense of the southern region was not a major priority, and their surprise attack speed would be faster. For these 10 days, we shall remain still. We will wait until Yang Tianzhan's army arrives before attacking Jindong City. Having figured this out, Chu Fan instructed Chen Qingji. After speaking, he departed, taking Guojia and Azure Bird with him. This subordinate obeys the command. Chen Qingji naturally knew the young master's intention, so he bowed toward the direction Chu Fan had left. Chu Fan left the main military camp and arrived at the tent prepared by Chen Qingji. Besides Azure Bird and Guojia, Yuan Qingdu, Qin Shu Bao, and the Yang family generals were also by his side. As for Luo Cheng, he was guarding Chu Fan's tent outside. This heir apparent must be planning to have General Yang and General Qin lead the troops to attack the southern region, right? After slowly taking a sip of wine, Guojia spoke to Chu Fan. In the main camp just now, he had already guessed Chu Fan's thoughts. As expected, nothing escapes Guojia's courtesy name. Since Yang Tianzhan has already defected to us, why don't we seize this opportunity to capture the southern region? At that time, the great Yin imperial family will have no chance to retreat. Chu Fan looked at Guojia and slowly said, once we capture the southern region, the entire Great Yin Dynasty will be practically fallen. Chapter 127 Yang Yi and Qin Xiong head to the southern border. Ouyang Tian's unease. If, initially, Chu Fan still wanted the Yang family generals and the 200,000-strong army of the Yang family to attack Jindong City together here, he had now changed his mind. After all, if Qin Xiong alone led 200,000 black armored iron cavalry, taking the entire southern territory might not be possible, but if the Yang family generals and the 200,000-strong army of the Yang family were added, then nothing would be impossible. After all, the Yang family generals were all existences in the Dharma aspect realm, and the 200,000 Yang family army of the Yang family were also considered elite troops. Furthermore, this time Chu Fan planned to have Luo Cheng lead the 18 riders of Yin Yun to assist Qin Shu Bao. This heir apparent's plan is perfect. As long as General Qin and General Yang take the southern territory, we could take the entire Great Yin Dynasty without any effort. Guojia highly agreed with Chu Fan's plan. It could be said that he had thought of such a plan immediately after hearing the report from the embroidered uniform guard, but he hadn't expected his own heir apparent to voice it first. Since Guojia's courtesy name agrees with my plan, then from now on, Shu Bao and General Yang should secretly head to the southern territory. After hearing Guojia's words, Chu Fan immediately finalized the decision. After all, if he wanted to take the entire Great Yin Dynasty as quickly as possible, then the southern territory must be captured at the fastest speed. This heir apparent, rest assured, your subordinate general will definitely take the southern territory at the fastest speed. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Yang Yi spoke seriously and firmly to Chu Fan. His eyes were filled with anticipation for earning merit. After all, he was summoned later, so he had not yet established any merit here. This heir apparent believes that General Yang and General Qin will not disappoint him. Chu Fan nodded toward Yang Yi and Qin Shubao. After Chu Fan and Guo Jia finalized the plan, Yang Yi, leading the Yang family generals, and Qin Shubao, galloped toward the southern territory. I hope that this time, the two of them can take the entire southern territory at the fastest possible speed. Watching the retreating figures of Yang Yi and Qin Shubao, a look of anticipation appeared on Chu Fan's face. Now, it could be said that half of the Great Yin Dynasty's territory was already in their hands. As long as the southern territory was taken, the Great Yin Dynasty would collapse without a fight. After all, if the eastern, southern, western, and northern territories were all in his hands, only the central territory would remain of the entire Great Yin Dynasty. With merely one central territory remaining, what could the Great Yin Dynasty use to resist him? At most, in 2 months' time, General Qin and General Yang will be able to take the entire southern territory. Guo Jia spoke with full confidence, looking in the direction Qin Shubao and Yang Yi had departed. Although the southern territory was also known as one of Great Yan's 5 territories, its strength was far lower than the other 4. Because the southern territory was near the sea, many Yao beasts appeared every year, plundering the lives of the southern territory, which meant the southern territory army had constantly been resisting the Yao beasts from the ocean. Therefore, they would not need to expend too much strength to take the southern territory. However, after taking the southern territory, they would have to consider how to face the Yao beasts in the ocean. This was the reason why Guo Jia was so confident. After Chu Fan arrived outside Jindong City, the armies of Chun Qingji and others outside Jindong City did not take action, but instead silently waited for the time to come. At this moment, Ouyang Tian, inside Jindong City, also felt a trace of unease after days of defense. In a few more days, the great general will lead a massive army to support our Jindong City. I imagine the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside must have received the news, but why have they chosen not to attack? Ouyang Tian frowned tightly as he looked at the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate below, which showed no intention of attacking. If he were in the position of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, he would definitely resolve Jindong City before the imperial army arrived. But now, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had surprisingly chosen not to attack them, as if they were unaware of the news that the imperial army was about to arrive. Perhaps the Prince of Jinbei's estate hasn't received the news that the imperial army is coming to reinforce us? Standing beside Ouyang Tian was a middle-aged general. A look of worry appeared on his face, but he still spoke to Ouyang Tian with a hint of hope. Impossible. It's impossible for the spies of the Prince of Jinbei's estate not to have received the news that Great General Yang is leading 400,000 troops to reinforce us. After hearing the middle-aged general's words, Ouyang Tian immediately shook his head in denial. After all, the news of the imperial army's mobilization could not be hidden from the Prince of Jinbei's estate. He did not agree with this point. Then why does the king think they chose not to attack? Is it because they know they cannot breach our Jindong City? The middle-aged man understood after hearing Ouyang Tian's words, so he looked at Ouyang Tian with a puzzled expression and inquired, "Has there been any change in the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside these past few days?" Ouyang Tian seemed to have thought of something at this moment, so he spoke to the middle-aged general beside him. It was as if a certain idea had formed in his mind. No, but a few days ago, it seems someone arrived among the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside. Moreover, the visitor status seemed quite high, as Chun Qingji even went out to greet him. The middle-aged general had just started to deny it, but then suddenly remembered something and said it. At the same time, a different light flickered in his eyes. Clearly, he was currently guessing who this person who had arrived among the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was. If that is truly the case, then perhaps the heir apparent of the Prince of Jinbei's estate or the Prince of Jinbei himself has already arrived among the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate outside. After hearing the middle-aged general's words, Ouyang Tian completely understood, but he was still somewhat confused. After all, no matter who arrived within the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, it couldn't change the outcome of this great battle. The army outside only numbered 100,000. Although the White Robe army outside was extremely powerful, try to face the army of the Prince of Zhendong's estate, plus the 400,000 troops sent by the imperial court was simply wishful thinking. Perhaps the Prince of Jinbei's estate is currently plotting against our Jindong City. After all, the Prince of Jinbei's estate has never failed since deploying its troops until now. Just as Ouyang Tian and the middle-aged general were pondering, a pleasant voice slowly reached their ears. Then, Ouyang Feng was seen slowly approaching them, holding a precious sword. In Ouyang Feng's eyes, however, a trace of deep worry could be seen. Even if they plot against our Jindong City, their military strength is insufficient. Therefore, we should not worry about the safety of Jindong City. After hearing Ouyang Feng's words, the middle-aged general revealed an undeniable smile, then leisurely cast his gaze toward the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate below. Chapter 128 Ouyang Feng's Speculation. Zhun Dongqing's Provocation. Although the middle-aged general knew that the Prince of Jinbei's estate had never suffered a defeat since deploying its troops, he did not believe that the Prince of Jinbei's estate could change the outcome of this battle with just the 100,000-strong army outside. Ouyang Tian, who had been filled with worry, also reacted after hearing the middle-aged general's words. After all, the Prince of Jinbei's estate still couldn't change the outcome of the upcoming major battle with these 100,000 troops. Father, what if the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is not just these 100,000? Ouyang Feng naturally saw through the thoughts of her father and the general in front of her. So, she slowly spoke, her eyes filled with worry. As a prodigy of the Prince of Zhendong's estate, and having been exposed to military affairs for many years, Ouyang Feng's ability to analyze battlefields was naturally not weak. Therefore, Ouyang Feng believed that the Prince of Jinbei's estate could not be so foolish as to underestimate them in a battle with such a disparity in strength. If the Prince of Jinbei's estate still has a large army, then that would be too unbelievable. After all, the army the Prince of Jinbei's estate dispatched this time has already reached almost 1 million. Even all the armies in my eastern region combined only amount to that much. The middle-aged general instantly couldn't sit still after hearing Ouyang Feng's words. He spoke with an incredulous expression. Clearly, he didn't believe Ouyang Feng's words. Perhaps the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was indeed hidden in the dark, but the strength the Prince of Jinbei's estate had shown now was probably their maximum tolerance. After all, they also knew that after deploying troops, the Prince of Jinbei's estate still needed to guard the northern region. Otherwise, if the Tianxin dynasty took the opportunity to attack the northern region, wouldn't the Prince of Jinbei's estate be caught between two fires? Perhaps the strength of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has indeed far exceeded our imagination, but they shouldn't have any hidden troops now. Otherwise, if they had taken Jindong City in advance, wouldn't it be better to face the upcoming major battle? Ouyang Tian also agreed with the middle-aged general's idea after hearing his words. After all, if the Prince of Jinbei's estate really had hidden troops, then the Prince of Jinbei's estate should take Jindong City while the Imperial Dynasty's army hasn't arrived. This would make it easier to face the upcoming 400,000 Imperial Dynasty troops. Although Ouyang Tian also felt that the current army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate was a bit off, he didn't believe that the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had the strength to take Jindong City. Father, why not send someone out tomorrow to probe the cards of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate? After hearing Ouyang Tian's words, Ouyang Feng also understood that her father already had suspicions, so she anxiously offered an opinion to her father. All right, since Phoenix is so worried, then tomorrow we will send a few generals to probe the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Ouyang Tian also understood Ouyang Feng's worries after hearing her words, so he couldn't help but say to Ouyang Feng. At the same time, he also wanted to see if the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate truly had a trump card. Ouyang Feng breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Ouyang Tian's words. Although the situation seemed favorable to them now, Ouyang Feng didn't know why a sense of worry lingered in her heart and couldn't be erased. It was as if they would be the ultimate losers of this great battle. Just as Ouyang Feng and Ouyang Tian were talking in Jindong City, the 400,000-strong army, led by Yang Tianzhan, was already approaching the eastern region. Father, we only need 3 days to reach Jindong City. Yang Wu, by Yang Tianzhan's side, showed an excited smile as he looked at the troops about to arrive in the eastern region. Once they successfully reached the eastern region, they could completely break away from the Great Yin dynasty. Moreover, Yang Wu also wanted to see his family soon. Yes, after crossing here, we will be people of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. I just don't know where Xu Yin and the others have arrived now. Yang Tianzhan's face also showed a hint of emotion at this moment. Once they passed here, they would completely draw a line with the Great Yin dynasty. At that time, they might become traitors in the mouths of others. But all of this was no longer important to Yang Tianzhan. At this moment, he only hoped that his family could live happily. The king of Jindong is still waiting for our support. He probably never imagined that we would be the last straw to crush his hope. Yang Wu then looked towards Jindong City. Although Jindong City was still far from them at this moment, Yang Wu seemed to have already seen the expression of the king of Jindong when he learned of their betrayal. Let's hurry. We cannot relax at this most crucial moment. Yang Tianzhan slowly nodded after hearing his son's words, then instructed Yang Wu. Although they had arrived near the eastern region at this moment, they were not entirely safe, so Yang Tianzhan naturally wanted to travel quickly. As for the 400,000-strong army behind him, they all understood his thoughts. They did not have much objection to Yang Tianzhan defecting to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The first reason was that these troops had followed Yang Tianzhan into battle from the very beginning. so they were very loyal to Yang Tianzhan. As for the other reason, it was because the Prince of Jinbei's estate's strength was too powerful at this time. They knew that even if they came to support Jindong City this time, they might not win, so defecting to the Prince of Jinbei's estate was their best choice. Moreover, defecting to the Prince of Jinbei's estate now was definitely better than defecting later. In fact, many forces within the Great Yin Dynasty at this time had already guessed the outcome of the great battle between the Great Yin Dynasty and the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Although they didn't believe that the Great Yin Dynasty would fail so easily, the strength displayed by the Prince of Jinbei's estate had far exceeded their imagination. If the strength displayed by the Prince of Jinbei's estate at this time could not surpass the Great Yin Dynasty, then the situation of the four great dynasties in the Eastern Domain would not change. Time quickly came to the next morning. As the morning sun shone on the earth, Chu Fan was still leisurely calculating the upcoming major battle with Guojia in the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Of course, Chen Qingji and others also offered suggestions from time to time. At this moment, they could be said to have calculated the entire Great Yin Dynasty. Reporting to the young master, General, the Prince of Zhendong's estate has sent a general to challenge my White Robe army. Just as Chu Fan and others were discussing how to quickly resolve the war with the Great Yin Dynasty, a soldier quickly entered the tent and reported the situation outside to Chu Fan and Chen Qingji. It seems that this king of Zhendong has discovered something, otherwise he wouldn't send troops to probe us. Guojia slowly raised his head and said with a smile after hearing the soldier's words. Chapter 129, First Meeting with the Prince of Zhendong, Chu Fan's plans. The current situation where Zhendong City sends out troops is already a disadvantageous choice for them. And now, Zhendong City has even sent people to provoke them, which means Zhendong City intends to test them. Since the king of Zhendong wants to test us, then let's go out and meet him. After all, we've been here for so many days and haven't truly met the king of Zhendong. Chu Fan hadn't expected the king of Zhendong to choose to test the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate at this time, but he was still a little curious about this king of Zhendong. This king of Zhendong was another king with a different surname, besides his own grandfather and father. He could be said to be one of the only two kings with a different surname in the entire Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Chu Fan, of course, wanted to see what strength this king of Zhendong, Ouyang Tian, who could be on par with his own grandfather as another king with a different surname in Great Yin, possessed. Although Chu Tianxiong was also a king with a different surname, he inherited Chu Long's kingship, so Ouyang Tian, the king of Zhendong, was one of the only two kings with a different surname in Great Yin. Subsequently, Chu Fan led Chen Qingji and others to the battlefield, where the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the Prince of Zhendong's estate were confronting each other outside Zhendong City. In the center of the battlefield, from the direction of Zhendong City, stood a Grotto Heaven Realm general. This Grotto Heaven Realm general held a strange weapon and looked at the direction of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate with firm eyes. As for the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, no one went out to meet the challenge. Instead, they had formed their formation, as if waiting for someone to arrive. At this time, Ouyang Tian, Ouyang Feng, and others on the city wall were also staring intently at the quiet battlefield below. With a few hoofbeats, Chu Fan, leading Chen Qingji and others, rode their warhorses on a battlefield. The White Robe army around them all made way, allowing Chu Fan and his companions to reach the very front of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. We pay our respects to the young master. Upon seeing Chu Fan arrive, the generals all bowed towards him, their eyes filled with admiration. Greetings, young master. Greetings, young master. Following these general salutes to Chu Fan, the 100,000 White Robe army behind them also excitedly saluted Chu Fan, their spirited voices echoing throughout the area outside Zhendong City. Chu Fan looked at the generals and the White Robe army in front of him, waved his hand, and then slowly turned his gaze to the city wall of Zhendong City. At this moment, Chu Fan also saw the so-called king of Zhendong on the city wall of Zhendong City. Nephew Chu Fan greets Royal Uncle Ouyang. These past few days have been busy, so I haven't had a chance to pay my respects to Royal Uncle Ouyang. I hope Royal Uncle Ouyang will not take offense. Looking at the king of Zhendong, Ouyang Tian, on the city wall, Chu Fan leisurely rode his white horse closer to Zhendong City, his gentle voice slowly emanating from his mouth. Although Ouyang Tian and their Prince of Jinbei's estate didn't have much of a relationship, Chu Fan still held a little admiration for Ouyang Tian in front of him. Of course, more importantly, he wanted to see if he could persuade Ouyang Tian to surrender. I didn't expect you, little one, to have grown to this extent. However, you and I are now adversaries, so you don't need to call me Royal Uncle. The king of Zhendong had, of course, seen Chu Fan when he was a child. After all, Chu Fan was the grandson of Chu Long, the Prince of Jinbei. At that time, the king of Zhendong had not yet become the king of Zhendong, so he had naturally met Chu Fan. Now, seeing Chu Fan, who resembled a refined young master. A look of emotion still appeared on the face of Ouyang Tian, the king of Zhendong. Even if nephew and royal uncle Ouyang are adversaries, it doesn't negate the fact that royal uncle Ouyang is nephew's royal uncle. Chu Fan heard Ouyang Tian's words, shook his head leisurely, and said, he actually very much wanted to bring Ouyang Tian under his command. Then why don't you retreat? After all, rebellion is a capital crime punishable by the extermination of 9 generations. Ouyang Tian scoffed when he heard Chu Fan's words, then spoke to him in a deep voice. It's not that nephew wants to rebel. It's mainly because the great Yan imperial dynasty has pressed too hard. Moreover, over these years, nephew has also come to understand a truth. When a cunning rabbit dies, the hounds are cooked. When the high-flying birds are gone, the good bows are put away. Does royal uncle Ouyang still want to continue serving the great Yan imperial family? Perhaps the fate of our Prince of Jinbei's estate will be the fate of royal uncle Ouyang. Chu Fan looked at Ouyang Tian on Zhendong City and shook his head, saying that he understood very well that the reason the king of Zhendong had not been pressured by the great Yan imperial dynasty was simply because the king of Zhendong only had one daughter. But Chu Fan also believed that once the great Yan imperial dynasty had its hands free, the king of Zhendong would definitely face a catastrophe. Ouyang Feng's fate would definitely not be good. Murong Li, the emperor of the great Yan imperial dynasty, would definitely not allow Ouyang Feng to inherit the kingship of the king of Zhendong. The best outcome would probably be a marriage alliance with the Murong imperial family, but the choice of spouse would be very difficult, because whoever married Ouyang Feng would receive the support of the king of Zhendong. At that time, Ouyang Feng would become an object of contention. Our prince of Zhendong's estate doesn't have the ambition of the prince of Jinbei's estate. I advise you to retreat. After all, the imperial army is about to arrive, and it will be difficult to retreat then. Ouyang Tian shook his head when he heard Chu Fan's words. In fact, he had never intended to participate in the war between the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the great Yan imperial dynasty, but he hadn't expected the Prince of Jinbei's estate to want to take down their Prince of Zhendong's estate. And at this time, Ouyang Tian still hadn't forgotten to persuade Chu Fan to retreat. In his opinion, Chu Fan no longer had a chance. Now, the best choice was only to retreat. Is royal uncle Ouyang so confident in himself? And does royal uncle Ouyang think the imperial army could defeat us? Chu Fan heard Ouyang Tian's words. A faint smile appeared on his lips, and then he spoke to Ouyang Tian very mysteriously. As if everything was under his control, Ouyang Tian on the city wall frowned when he saw the mysterious smile on Chu Fan's face. At this moment, a bad premonition had already arisen in his heart. Does your army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate still have the ability to support you now? Although he didn't know where this bad premonition in his heart came from, Ouyang Tian couldn't help but want to ask what Chu Fan's trump card was. Royal uncle Ouyang is right. My army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate no longer has the ability to support me. After all, my army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is also limited. Chu Fan did not refute Ouyang Tian's words. Instead, he spoke to Ouyang Tian with a calm expression. However, his calm face made Ouyang Tian feel a hint of unease. But has royal uncle Ouyang never thought that perhaps what supports me is not the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but an army that royal uncle Ouyang would never expect? Seeing a look of unease appear on Ouyang Tian's face, Chu Fan continued to speak to Ouyang Tian. Although exposing Yang Tianzhan at this time might not be a good thing for him, it would plunge the entire Zhendong city into panic, making it easier to attack Zhendong city at that time. What's more, Chu Fan knew that with the king of Zhendong's intelligence, he wouldn't believe him. Chapter 130, The Timid Town of Zhendong, Mysterious Letter. Although king of Zhendong's intellect wouldn't lead him to trust Chu Fan's words would still sow some doubt regarding Yang Tianzhan's army. More importantly, Zhendong city would be plunged into panic for the next few days, which was the outcome Chu Fan desired. If you could take down General Yang, then you wouldn't need to be here talking to this king right now. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, King of Zhendong indeed looked at Chu Fan with disdain, thinking that Chu Fan was trying to provoke a rift between him and Yang Tianzhan. After all, if Chu Fan truly managed to drive a wedge between him and Yang Tianzhan, it would greatly benefit Chu Fan in the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, Ouyang Feng, who was beside Ouyang Tian, stared at Chu Fan with a thoughtful gaze after hearing his words, her eyes filled with suspicion. Although Chu Fan's words made her feel incredible, Ouyang Feng didn't know why, but she felt that this mysterious heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate might actually be able to achieve this. If royal uncle Ouyang doesn't believe it, this nephew can do nothing, but since royal uncle Ouyang has chosen to dispatch his army against mine today, then this nephew will accompany him to the end. Seeing that his objective had been achieved, Chu Fan cupped his hands towards Ouyang Tian on the city wall, then slowly rode his warhorse towards the white robe army. At this point, he no longer wanted to waste words with Ouyang Tian, as he had already obtained the answer he sought. Zilong, go forth. This heir apparent does not wish to see the enemy so arrogant. Chu Fan, who had arrived in front of the white robe army, looked at Zhao Zilong and issued his command. Although using Zhao Zilong to deal with these Grotto Heaven Realm generals seemed like overkill, there are simply too many Grotto Heaven Realm generals in the army of the Prince of Junbei's estate at this time, and Chu Fan couldn't remember all their names, which was why he sent Zhao Zilong to battle. Moreover, Zhao Zilong's participation in battle could directly make the entire Zhendong city unable to hold its head high. After all, Zhao Zilong was a Dharma aspect realm existence, and he was known as the White Horse and Silver Spear. Zhao Zilong of the Prince of Junbei's estate is here. Who dares to fight me? After hearing Chu Fan's words, Zhao Zilong rode his warhorse to the center of the battlefield. He slowly stuck his dragon gallbladder bright silver spear into the ground beside him, his gaze firm as he looked towards Zhendong City. His voice directly reverberated throughout the entire Zhendong City. The generals on the city wall of Zhendong City, who had originally been eager to try, all suppressed their impulses when they heard Zhao Zilong's name, although they all wanted to go out and claim this first merit. Who among them was a fool? Zhao Zilong was known as the White Horse and Silver Spear, and he was also a Dharma aspect realm cultivator. No matter how much they wanted to die, they wouldn't die under Zhao Zilong's spear. Father, the Prince of Junbei's estate has sent Zhao Zilong. We have no general on our side to counter him. It seems this probing will be in vain. Ouyang Feng naturally saw the expressions of everyone on the city wall. She slowly stepped forward and said to Ouyang Tian. At the same time, Ouyang Feng also understood that the Prince of Junbei's estate had no intention of giving them a chance. After all, who would dare to provoke a Dharma aspect realm general by leaving the city? Alas, no one expected the Prince of Junbei's estate's foundation to be so strong, and this Zhao Zilong below the city is a Dharma aspect realm existence. Even I, your father, would not dare to fight. Ouyang Tian naturally understood Ouyang Feng's meaning. He looked at Zhao Zilong below with a helpless expression. As the king of Zhendong, he naturally understood how powerful Zhao Zilong's strength truly was. It was precisely because he understood Zhao Zilong's immense strength that he felt so helpless. Hang the truce. Helpless. Ouyang Tian could only wave his hand at the general beside him, his voice filled with helplessness and despondency. The middle-aged general beside Ouyang Tian, upon hearing his words, also hung up the truce and glanced at Chu Fan and the others below with a complex expression. Heir apparent, they have already hung up the truce. It seems General Zilong's deterrent power is still very strong. Chen Qingji below naturally saw everything on Zhendong City. He looked at Zhendong City with an expression that said, "Sure enough, I had originally thought I could watch some entertainment today, but I didn't expect the generals of Zhendong City to not dare to come out. If that's the case, let's go back." Chu Fan also looked towards Zhendong City with some disappointment at this moment, then slowly rode his warhorse away from the battlefield outside Zhendong City. Yuan Qingdu and Qingniao and others also followed Chu Fan's footsteps and left the battlefield. Have they left? It seems you are very disappointed in my Zhendong City. Ouyang Feng on the city wall naturally saw Chu Fan leaving. She sighed in her heart with a lingering gaze. In fact, she was also very disappointed with the Great Yan Imperial Dynasty, but their Ouyang family simply couldn't resist the Great Yan Imperial Dynasty. Perhaps you are the breakthrough point this time. Ouyang Feng seemed to have thought of something at this moment, and her eyes looking at Chu Fan were filled with a strange glint. At the same time, her heart was struggling. A thought arose in her heart at this moment. As Chu Fan returned to his camp, today's probing ended, and the results not obtained today kept Ouyang Feng awake all night. Soon, night fell, and the dark night sky appeared so quiet. At this moment, Chu Fan was discussing the progress of the army of the Prince of Junbei's estate with Guo Jia in the camp. Just then, a silver bright light suddenly streaked across the dark night sky towards Chu Fan's camp. Yuan Qingdu, who was beside Chu Fan, naturally noticed this scene. His chi trembled, and then this silver-white light landed on the ground. At this moment, Yuan Qingdu's gaze instantly fell upon this silver-white dart. A piece of paper was tied to this silver-white dart, clearly indicating that someone had used this dart to send a message to Chu Fan. Qingdu, open it and see. Although Chu Fan didn't know who sent him this letter, he was still very curious, so he instructed Yuan Qingdu. As for Guo Jia, who was beside Chu Fan, he looked at Chu Fan with a smile. Perhaps he had already guessed the source of this letter. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Yuan Qingdu slowly picked up the dart from the ground and instantly opened the note on the dart. The note only had 2 lines of text, and these 2 lines of text appeared somewhat delicate, clearly written by a woman. Meet at 10 Li outside the city at the third quarter of noon tonight. Just this line of text indicated the meaning the letter wanted to convey. Guojia's courtesy name. Who do you think wants to see this heir apparent? After seeing the contents of the letter, Chu Fan slowly turned to look at Guojia and asked, a thoughtful expression appearing on his face. Chapter 131 Late Night Meeting, Face-to-Face Discussion with Ouyang Feng. Although Chu Fan also had a look of contemplation on his face, at this moment, he already had a guess. I'm afraid no one other than the king of Zhendong's princess could write such beautiful calligraphy. Guojia guessed whose hand the letter came from the moment he saw the content and handwriting, so he looked at Chu Fan and smiled leisurely. The one who knows me, Guojia's courtesy name, also, but Guojia's courtesy name, do you think this heir apparent should meet this princess of the prince of Zhendong's estate? Chu Fan smiled after hearing Guojia's words, then looked at Guojia with a smile and asked, but he already had a plan in his heart. This heir apparent might as well go to see this princess. Maybe there will be some unexpected gains. Guojia naturally understood Chu Fan's thoughts, so he continued to speak to Chu Fan with a smile, and after speaking, he did not forget to take a sip of wine. It was as if not drinking made him feel uncomfortable all over. Haha, Guojia's courtesy name's idea is the same as mine. Since that's the case, then let's go meet this princess. Chu Fan smiled helplessly at Guojia after hearing his words. Guojia was indeed worthy of being the legendary prodigy, guessing his thoughts perfectly. As for Ouyang Feng on the other side, she had returned to the city wall of Zhendong City at this time, and she looked at the prince of Zhenbei's estate station troops outside with a deep gaze. Guojia and Chu Fan's guess just now was not wrong. It was indeed she who sent out that dart, and after sending out the dart, she also directly returned to Zhendong City. In fact, Ouyang Feng herself didn't know why she had asked Chu Fan to meet this time. Perhaps it was because she wanted to meet this mysterious heir of the prince of Zhenbei's estate. Perhaps it was also because Chu Fan gave her a very mysterious feeling. Of course, the most important reason was probably to save the king of Zhendong's life. Time passed by, and it was midnight in the blink of an eye, getting closer and closer to the agreed time. Ouyang Feng changed into a casual dress and left Zhendong City with 2 maids. Alas, it seems Phoenix also has her own ideas. Old ancestor, Phoenix's safety is entrusted to you. What Ouyang Feng didn't know was that the moment she left, Ouyang Tian appeared where she had departed. Ever since Ouyang Tian discovered his daughter's unusual state today, he had been paying close attention to her. Now, seeing Ouyang Feng leave, he did not stop her, but instead looked at his daughter's departing back with a worried expression. Of course, he naturally knew about Ouyang Feng's intention to meet Chu Fan this time. As one of the only 2 non-imperial kings in Great Yin, how could he be so simple? Then let this old man make this trip. I'll also go see if this so-called heir of the prince of Zhenbei's estate is as formidable as the rumors say. As soon as Ouyang Tian's words fell, an old voice sounded beside him. Then, a black shadow disappeared beside Ouyang Tian, as if it had never appeared. I hope Phoenix will not encounter any danger this time. Otherwise, I, Ouyang Tian, will be irreconcilable with the prince of Zhenbei's estate. Ouyang Tian looked at the direction outside the city with a solemn expression after the person disappeared. Although he was the king of Zhendong City, having only one daughter, Ouyang Feng, he didn't place much importance on the throne. It could be said that the main reason he had steadily held the king of Zhendong's position was for his daughter. While Ouyang Feng was heading to the agreed location, Chu Fan was also rushing to the agreed location. This time, he didn't bring too many people, only Yuan Qingdu and Qingyao. Originally, Chu Fan wanted to bring Guojia too, but that guy found it boring and decided not to come. As the war horses slowly walked outside the city, Chu Fan quickly arrived at the agreed location. At this time, he also saw the 3 figures standing at the agreed location. One of the figures was Ouyang Feng, the princess of the king of Zhendong, whom he had seen during the day. I Chu have met Miss Ouyang. Looking at Ouyang Feng in front of him, Chu Fan smiled leisurely and spoke, while his gaze constantly assessed Ouyang Feng in front of him. It must be said that Ouyang Feng was indeed worthy of being the king of Zhendong's daughter. Her body was filled with an innate nobility, and even without wearing armor at this moment, she gave off a heroic and valiant feeling. This heir apparent is indeed worthy of being this heir apparent. He isn't afraid of this girl ambushing him. When Ouyang Feng saw that Chu Fan only brought 2 people, a look of surprise appeared on her face, mixed with a hint of admiration. She hadn't expected Chu Fan to dare to come to the appointment with only 2 people. If she had set up an ambush, then Chu Fan would indeed have found it very difficult to return this time. I, Chu, still trust the princess. I, Chu, believe that the princess would never be that kind of person. Chu Fan smiled at Ouyang Feng, looking at her with sincere eyes, but half of his words were false. He indeed didn't believe Ouyang Feng would ambush him. But even if Ouyang Feng did ambush him, what then? Yuan Qingdu was a king realm expert. Even 100,000 troops were nothing in front of him. Moreover, his own strength had also reached the perfected Dharma aspect realm. This was the sense of security that strength brought him. Then I shall thank this heir apparent for his trust here. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Ouyang Feng smiled at Chu Fan and said. At this moment, she looked at Chu Fan as if he were an old friend of many years. May I ask why the princess invited me here? Chu Fan looked at Ouyang Feng in front of him and asked seriously. Although there was a great beauty standing in front of him, he still wanted to ask clearly before going back to sleep. After all, no one could stop his pace of lying flat. I want to ask this heir apparent how to withdraw the troops. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Ouyang Feng immediately put away the smile on her face, then looked at Chu Fan seriously and asked. After speaking, her eyes stared intently at Chu Fan, as if trying to discern other emotions on his face. If Zhendong City is taken, this heir apparent will naturally retreat. Chu Fan stood out without yielding after hearing Ouyang Feng's words and spoke to her. At this moment, his eyes were filled with unprecedented determination. This heir apparent, by launching such a war, have you considered the common people? How many common people will perish and have their families broken because of this war launched by this heir apparent? Ouyang Feng was not too surprised after hearing Chu Fan's words. Instead, she looked at Chu Fan leisurely and said. After speaking, a hint of pity and sorrow appeared on Ouyang Feng's face. As the king of Zhendong's only beloved daughter, and also a general of the prince of Zhendong's estate, she naturally knew the harm caused by war. Chapter 132, The Overbearing Chu Fan and the Puzzled Ouyang Tian. What does the suffering of the world's populace have to do with this heir apparent? On the path to becoming an emperor, who hasn't left corpses strewn across the wilderness. Chu Fan waved his hand after hearing Ouyang Feng's words. Immediately after speaking, a dominating qi instantly burst forth from his body. At this moment, the aura on Chu Fan's body was completely changed. He was no longer that refined young master. He resembled a sleeping lion about to awaken. At the same time, this dominating qi emanating from him was something Ouyang Feng had never seen before. Even on her father, the king of Zhendong, she had never sensed this dominating yet secure qi. Heir apparent, aren't you afraid that the world will call you a tyrant for acting this way? It took Ouyang Feng a while to recover from the dominating qi surrounding Chu Fan. She then looked towards Chu Fan and spoke softly, though her voice was much weaker now. County Princess is joking. Even if the world calls this heir apparent a tyrant, so what? As long as this heir apparent makes the world better, that is sufficient. Moreover, history is written by the victors. This heir apparent believes that by then, the people of the world will explain things on his behalf. What's more, in this world where the strong reign supreme, strength is everything. Chu Fan smiled faintly after hearing Ouyang Feng's words. He had not expected the thoughts in Ouyang Feng's heart to be so childish. When he first came out to meet Ouyang Feng, he had held some expectations for her. But after meeting Ouyang Feng, he felt that this county princess of the prince of Zhendong's estate was quite naive. Actually, Ouyang Feng could not be blamed for her naivety. After all, she had always lived under the protection of her father, the king of Zhendong, so her thoughts were naturally different from those of Chu Fan. County princess, if you wish for this heir apparent to withdraw his troops, then ask the king of Zhendong to surrender. This will reduce the losses of Zhendong City. Otherwise, if Zhendong City turns into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, the county princess must not blame this heir apparent. Chu Fan looked at the naive Ouyang Feng before him and spoke slowly. Although he was somewhat disappointed in Ouyang Feng, Chu Fan still hoped that Ouyang Feng could persuade Ouyang Tian to surrender. The court's 400,000-strong army is about to arrive at my Zhendong City. By then, the heir apparent will no longer have the chance to tell us to surrender, so the heir apparent still has a chance to retreat now. After hearing Chu Fan's words, a hint of gloom flashed in Ouyang Feng's eyes, but she quickly regained her spirits and spoke to Chu Fan, a flicker of expectation rising in her heart. County Princess, do you think my prince of Jinbei's estate would fight a battle it is not confident in winning? Chu Fan shook his head as he looked at Ouyang Feng, whose face held a hint of expectation. At this moment, he was full of high spirits, as if Zhendong City before him was already under his control. Ouyang Feng was momentarily stunned after hearing Chu Fan's words, because she clearly knew that the prince of Jinbei's estate had never suffered a defeat since mobilizing its army. Although she could not discern where Chu Fan got his confidence to take Zhendong City, a voice in her heart told her that Chu Fan would absolutely achieve victory this time. If my prince of Zhendong's estate surrenders, how will the prince of Jinbei's estate deal with my prince of Zhendong's estate? After a long while, Ouyang Feng finally spoke slowly. The confidence she had at the beginning was gone from her eyes, replaced instead by confusion about the future. This heir apparent cannot guarantee how much power the Prince of Jinbei's estate will grant the Prince of Zhendong's estate, but this heir apparent can guarantee that the Prince of Zhendong's estate will not suffer any casualties in this great battle. Of course, this is under the premise that the Prince of Zhendong's estate does not participate in this great battle. However, if the Prince of Zhendong's estate pledges allegiance to my Prince of Jinbei's estate, this heir apparent guarantees the Prince of Zhendong's estate a general position. Chu Fan had not expected Ouyang Feng to change her mind so quickly, so he spoke slowly. Although Chu Fan could not give Ouyang Feng too much assurance at this time, but guaranteeing that the king of Zhendong's title would remain was impossible. After all, Chu Fan had no intention of creating a system involving non-imperial kings. Even if he established a nation in the future, he would not create non-imperial kings. At most, he would establish marquises. County Princess, you still have 3 days. After 3 days, if the Prince of Zhendong's estate does not provide an answer, then my army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate will commence a full-scale assault on the city. Chu Fan said slowly, looking at the pondering Ouyang Feng. After speaking, he mounted his warhorse and slowly led Qing Niao and Yuan Qingdu away from the location. He did not pay attention to the still pondering Ouyang Feng. However, before leaving, Chu Fan's gaze swept towards the night sky behind Ouyang Feng. Only after glancing meaningfully at that dark night sky did Chu Fan lead the two away from the location. As expected of the heir apparent of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, it seems he still discovered this old man. In the night sky behind Ouyang Feng, an old man dressed in black looked in the direction Chu Fan had left and spoke slowly. When Chu Fan looked toward this spot just now, he already knew he had been discovered. In fact, when Chu Fan first arrived here, the old man noticed the chi seemingly locking onto him, but at that time, he did not think he had been discovered. It was not until Chu Fan's glance just now that he realized he had been discovered from the very beginning. 3 days? What trump card do you actually possess that allows you to take my Zhendong city? A while after Chu Fan left, Ouyang Feng finally recovered from her thoughts, her eyes gazing faintly in the direction Chu Fan had departed. Ouyang Feng then sighed and led the two maids beside her toward Zhendong city. Just as Ouyang Feng was rushing back towards Zhendong city, Ouyang Tian also received the contents of Ouyang Feng and Chu Fan's conversation. 3 days is precisely the time the court's great army will arrive. What confidence does Chu Fan have to take my Zhendong city on that day? Or has General Yang Tianzhan truly betrayed us? Ouyang Tian gazed faintly at the bright moon in the sky. At this moment, he was constantly pondering the meaning behind Chu Fan's words. At the same time, he recalled his conversation with Chu Fan during the day. He had not expected Chu Fan to set the day of the decisive battle for the day the court's great army arrived. He knew that if the battle truly began on that day, the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate would undoubtedly be weaker than Zhendong city's forces. Ouyang Tian did not know what Chu Fan would use to achieve victory. No, Yang Tianzhan cannot have betrayed us. If he betrayed us, then the entire general's residence would be slaughtered completely. Given his character, he could not watch the entire general's residence be destroyed because of him. Ouyang Tian seemed to have thought of something at this moment, so he immediately dismissed the idea that Yang Tianzhan had betrayed the great Yin Imperial Dynasty. After all, based on his understanding of Yang Tianzhan would absolutely not implicate the entire general's residence due to personal reasons. But what Ouyang Tian had not considered was, if the entire general's residence was going to be destroyed because of Yang Tianzhan anyway, then why would Yang Tianzhan not choose to betray them? Chapter 133, General Wu Tianxi of Jinnan and the Sea Emperor of the Sea Clan's excitement. On the other side, Chu Fan had also returned to his tent. He did not take the matter of Ouyang Feng seeking him out seriously. After all, whether the Prince of Zhendong's estate surrendered or not, it would completely become their territory 3 days later. If the Prince of Zhendong's estate surrendered, perhaps they would not need to expend too much effort to take Zhendong city. But even if the Prince of Zhendong's estate did not surrender, they could still easily capture Zhendong city. Time passed slowly. While Chu Fan was waiting for the army of Yang Tianzhan to arrive, Qin Xiong and the Yang family generals appeared in the southern region. Their traveling speed was very fast, but upon arriving in the southern region, Qin Xiong and Yang Yi immediately separated, as both of them currently command an army of 200,000 soldiers. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for them to launch a joint attack on the southern region. With the help of Luo Cheng and the 18 riders of Yin Yun, Qin Xiong only spent a few days capturing several cities. On average, they could capture 1 city every day. As for Yang Yi on the other side, he led the 7 generals of the Yang family to quickly seize cities. The 7 generals of the Yang family had all reached the Dharma aspect realm, so the generals of the southern region could not even last a single move against them. In just a few days, Yang Yi also captured several cities in the southern region, and his speed was in no way inferior to Qin Xiong's. It could be said that in just a few days, the Prince of Jinbei's estate had captured 1/5 of the southern region cities. Southern region, Jinhai City. The Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, was currently sitting in the city lord's estate, looking grimly at the incoming battle reports. Unlike the other three regions, the southern region did not have a prince. Instead, it had a Grand General of the South. This Grand General of the South was the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, who was in the spirit roaming realm. His strength was considered outstanding among those in the spirit roaming realm. More importantly, this general did not serve the Great Yin Dynasty. To be precise, he served the southern region. He would even defy the orders of the Great Yin Dynasty rather than watch the southern region fall into desperation. The ambition of the Prince of Jinbei's estate is too great. No matter how you fight the Great Yin Dynasty, I, Wu Tianxi, will not interfere, but you should never have come to run wild in my southern region. The Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, looked thoughtfully at the news in his hand, a look of grim anger appearing on his face. The moment the war broke out between the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the Great Yin Dynasty, he knew there would inevitably be a decisive battle between the two major powers. However, the Prince of Jinbei's estate and the Great Yin Dynasty had never brought the battlefield to the southern region, which had satisfied the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi. But he had not expected that this time the Prince of Jinbei's estate would choose to directly attack the southern region, which instantly enraged him. After all, the southern region was the territory of him, the Grand General of the South. More importantly, if he transferred the army to fight the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, the Yao beast in the sea near Jinhai City would attack Jinhai City, and the entire Jinhai City might become a living hell. This was something this general did not want to see. Furthermore, if Jinhai City truly fell into the hands of the Yao race, the entire southern region would be plunged into darkness. Grand General, the Prince of Jinbei's estate mobilized a total of 400,000 troops this time. They are attacking the eastern and western parts of our southern region respectively, clearly intending to take our southern region in one fell swoop. Wu Tong, the Deputy General of the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, also looked at the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, with worry. Although their southern region could deploy 1,000,000 troops, most of the army was currently needed to defend against the Sea Yao. Therefore, they naturally could not send out too many troops to resist the attack of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Moreover, the Wu family had guarded Jinhai City for generations, so they naturally could not allow Jinhai City to become the territory of the Yao beast. You must properly guard Jinhai City. This general will go to the front line to see if I can make the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate retreat. The Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, also had no better solution at this time. He stood up and spoke to Wu Tong beside him. Although Wu Tong's strength was inferior to the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, he was still a cultivator of the spirit roaming realm. So the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, felt relieved in trusting Jinhai City to him temporarily. Please rest assured, Grand General, as long as I, Wu Tong, am alive, I will definitely be able to defend Jinhai City. However, the Grand General is going alone towards the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate and must be careful of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. After hearing the words of the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, Wu Tong instantly understood his meaning, and he promised the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, with a look of worry in his eyes. As for why he did not choose to stop the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, it was naturally because war truly should not break out in the southern region right now, or the Sea Yao would seize the opportunity to attack Jinhai City. After receiving Wu Tong's assurance, the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, left Jinhai City. His departure did not attract anyone's attention. Wu Tong merely announced that the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, needed to enter seclusion to cultivate for a period of time. Thus, the cultivators of Jinhai City all believed that the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, had gone into seclusion. Just as the Grand General of the South, Wu Tianxi, left Jinhai City, inside a palace at the bottom of the sea, many Sea Yao with Yao beast heads looked expectantly at the middle-aged man with a human face and a fish body sitting in the center of the hall. Reporting to the Sea Emperor, war has broken out among the human race. It seems the Prince of Jinbei's estate from the northern region has led an army into the southern region. A Sea Yao slowly stepped forward and spoke to the middle-aged man with a human face and a fish body. This man was the Sea Emperor of the Sea Domain. The cultivation of the Yao race and the human race are also divided into ranks. For example, a king rank expert of the Yao race is equivalent to a human race expert of the Dharma aspect realm, while a royal rank expert of the Yao race is equivalent to a human race expert of the spirit roaming realm. Below that, a general rank Yao race member is equivalent to a human race cultivator of the Grotto Heaven realm. Therefore, This Sea Emperor of the Sea race is an existence of the Dharma aspect realm. The human race is indeed a greedy bunch of fellows. However, this time the Prince of Jinbei's estate has given us an opportunity. As long as they can capture Jinhai City, our chance will come. After all, once the Wu family of Jinhai City disappears, the formation of Jinhai City will no longer be able to stop this emperor. Upon hearing the report from the Yao King, this Sea Emperor of the Yao race showed a trace of excitement on his face, and at the same time, he began to look forward to the moment he could enter human race territory. The main reason the Sea race has been unable to breach the demon-suppressing city all these years is that the demon-suppressing city has a formation guarded by the Wu family, and this formation specifically targets him, the Sea Emperor. This is also why the Wu family, relying on cultivators of the spirit roaming realm, could guard the entire Jinhai City. With this formation, cultivators at the Sea Emperor rank cannot breach Jinhai City. But if the Prince of Jinbei's estate captures Jinhai City, then the Prince of Jinbei's estate will be unable to activate this formation. Chapter 134, The Wu Family of Jinhai City. Ouyang Tian meets Yang Tianzhan. As for why the Sea Emperor was so certain that the Prince of Jinbei's estate could not activate this formation, it was mainly because the Sea Emperor also knew that this formation required the Wu family's bloodline to be activated. This means that no one besides those with the Wu family's bloodline can activate this formation. However, Jinhai City currently acts as if this incident never happened, and they are still defending against us Sea race. Another demon king slowly stepped forward and spoke to their Sea Emperor, confusion showing on its ugly face. It did not know why the Wu family of Jinhai City had chosen not to send troops to fight the Prince of Jinbei's estate. The Wu family regards us as their sworn enemies, so their primary goal is to guard against us. Isn't it normal that they haven't chosen to send out troops now? Another demon king of the Sea race looked scornfully in the direction of Jinhai City after hearing the first demon king's words. Through the conflicts with the Wu family over the years, they had come to understand the Wu family's intentions. After all, if the Wu family truly didn't care about Jinhai City, they wouldn't have sacrificed so much. One must know that the Sea race's attacks on Jinhai City over the years have caused heavy casualties for the Wu family. Even several experts of the spirit roaming realm were sacrificed by the Wu family. Furthermore, the Wu family had previously sacrificed 2 half-step Faxiang realm existences just to set up this formation, which is why this formation can prevent the Sea Emperor from entering Jinhai City. After all, it was a formation set up by 2 half-step Faxiang realm formation masters. After learning the news that a major battle was imminent between the Prince of Jinbei's estate and Jinhai City, the Sea race chose not to continue attacking Jinhai City, but instead decided to stop and watch the battle. Just as the Grand General of the South was heading to the front lines, Jindong City, on the other side, also welcomed the protagonists of this great battle. Yang Tianzhan, leading his army of 400,000, had already appeared behind Jindong City. The king of Jindong, Ouyang Tian, naturally knew of Yang Tianzhan's arrival, but Ouyang Tian chose not to let Yang Tianzhan enter Jindong City. Instead, he had the army Yang Tianzhan brought set up camp elsewhere near Jindong City. At this moment, Yang Tianzhan's army and the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate were already facing each other from a distance. Of course, during these 3 days, Ouyang Feng and Ouyang Tian still had not given Chu Fan an answer. Instead, they seemed to be silently waiting for the arrival of the great battle. Father King, General Yang's army has arrived. It seems it is time for us to launch the final battle against the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Ouyang Feng, standing on the city wall, looked at Ouyang Tian with worry in her eyes. Although she had wanted to persuade Ouyang Tian to surrender over the past few days. But as his daughter, how could she let her father bear the reputation of treason? Therefore, she was now determined to resist the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Chu Fan, you and I are destined to only be enemies. After Ouyang Feng finished speaking, she looked toward the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. At that moment, the mysterious figure appeared in her mind, as if nothing was an issue in front of that person. Chu Fan's confident, calculating demeanor was thoroughly imprinted in Ouyang Feng's mind. Go down and welcome General Yang. Next, we must discuss how to deal with the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Ouyang Tian naturally noticed the strangeness on his daughter's face, but at this moment, he could only sigh helplessly. Then, he slowly led Ouyang Feng toward the city gate. At this time, Yang Tianzhan, leading Yang Wu and several generals, was already standing outside the Jindong City gate. Of course, the gate they were was Jindong City's south gate. Meanwhile, the gate where Chu Fan and the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate were located was Jindong City's north gate. Father, why do we still need to enter Jindong City? Yang Wu looked at his father, Yang Tianzhan, who intended to enter Jindong City with him and the other generals, and asked him with confusion. In his opinion, they could just unite with the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate and capture Jindong City. Why go through so much trouble? Speak less, do more. I have my own plans. After hearing Yang Wu's words, Yang Tianzhan shook his head at Yang Wu, then looked toward the city gate in front of him, a hint of complexity in his eyes. He hadn't expected that one day he would betray the great Yin dynasty. However, after just a few breaths, the look in his eyes became resolute again. A moment later, the Jindong city gate opened. Ouyang Tian led the crowd out slowly. Seeing Yang Tianzhan in front of him, a smile appeared on Ouyang Tian's face. Brother Yang, long time no see. Ouyang Tian quickly walked toward Yang Tianzhan. Looking at Yang Tianzhan in front of him, Ouyang Tian showed a long-lost smile. Yes, Brother Ouyang, we haven't seen each other in over 10 years. Yang Tianzhan naturally recognized Ouyang Tian. A smile of emotion appeared on his face, and he slowly stepped forward and punched Ouyang Tian on the chest. Although one of them was the king of Jindong and the other was a great general of Great Yin, they had a good relationship when they were young. Later, due to the lack of contact, they rarely saw each other. Fortunately, Brother Yang arrived. Otherwise, this younger brother wouldn't know how to defend Jindong City. Ouyang Tian spoke helplessly while looking at Yang Tianzhan in front of him. He had been very worried these past few days, but seeing Yang Tianzhan's arrival made his worries instantly disappear. Brother Ouyang, do you think Jindong City can truly be defended? After hearing Ouyang Tian's words, a helpless expression suddenly appeared on Yang Tianzhan's lips, and he stared seriously at Ouyang Tian and questioned him. Although Yang Tianzhan really wanted to deceive Ouyang Tian, he didn't know why he didn't want to deceive Ouyang Tian anymore at this moment. After Yang Tianzhan's words fell, Yang Wu behind him also raised his head in disbelief, looking at his father. It wasn't just Yang Wu. Everyone else also raised their heads blankly, looking in Yang Tianzhan's direction. Brother Yang, what do you mean by that? With Jindong City's 200,000 troops and the 400,000 troops in your hands, are we still unable to defeat the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate? Ouyang Tian also felt a bad premonition rising in his heart at this moment, but he suppressed it and spoke to Yang Tianzhan. Brother Ouyang, you are wrong. The Prince of Jinbei's estate is not that simple. If they wanted to take Jindong City, they wouldn't have needed to wait for my arrival. Didn't Brother Ouyang notice that the Prince of Jinbei's estate's army has consistently chosen not to attack Jindong City? Yang Tianzhan shook his head while looking at Ouyang Tian and said, although Yang Tianzhan knew that he had already defected to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, he also believed that even if he hadn't defected to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, the Prince of Jinbei's estate could still rely on its own strength to capture Jindong City. Chapter 135 Yang Tianzhan's Persuasion, Ouyang Tian's Final Decision. What's more, he has now joined the camp of the Prince of Jinbei's estate, meaning Jindong City no longer has any opportunity. Brother Yang, since you know the Prince of Jinbei's estate is formidable, why did you choose to come and support my Jindong City? At that moment, the ominous premonition in Ouyang Tian's heart grew heavier, but he suppressed it and spoke to Yang Tianzhan. Brother Ouyang, what do you think the person in the imperial capital would do to the entire Yang family if I didn't participate in the war? Yang Tianzhan burst into laughter after hearing Ouyang Tian's words, then looked sorrowfully toward the imperial capital. In truth, this was the real reason he defected to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. After all, a general dying on the battlefield is no trivial matter. But what he feared was that even if he died in battle, he would still be unable to protect his family. Ouyang Tian was instantly stunned after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words, because he knew the temper of that person in the Great Yin dynasty. If Yang Tianzhan had not deployed troops, the entire Yang family would have been executed due to his inaction. Initially, focused on his own situation, he had overlooked this point. After all, the Ouyang family of his Prince of Jindong's estate were all located in Jindong City, so he naturally did not need to fear the person in the Great Yin dynasty. So that's the reason. However, because of this great battle cannot be lost, or the consequences will be unthinkable. Ouyang Tian slowly regained his composure, then stared at Yang Tianzhan and spoke. Brother Ouyang, I will no longer keep it a secret. I, Yang Tianzhan, have already joined the camp of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Therefore, from today onward, you and I are enemies. The main reason I came here this time was to persuade Brother Ouyang to join the Prince of Jinbei's estate's camp. Only by doing so can you and I continue to talk and laugh together in the future. Yang Tianzhan shook his head upon hearing Ouyang Tian's words, then directly stated the main reason he had come to find Ouyang Tian, simultaneously revealing that he had already joined the Prince of Jinbei's estate without any reservation. Yang Wu tightly gripped the weapon in his hand after hearing his father Yang Tianzhan's words. Although he did not know why his father trusted Ouyang Tian so deeply, he now had to consider his father's safety. As for Ouyang Feng, who stood behind Ouyang Tian, her eyes widened as she stared at Yang Tianzhan in disbelief. She had never imagined that the person who brought them hope had already defected to their enemy long ago. Ha ha, I never expected the reinforcements this king waited for so long to actually be an enemy. Ouyang Tian was stunned for a moment after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words. Then he burst into laughter, looking bitterly at Yang Tianzhan. At that moment, Ouyang Tian knew he had lost, and he had lost completely. Yang Tianzhan might have brought him a glimmer of hope at first, but now he had forcibly ripped that hope away. Brother Yang, I just want to know where the entire Yang family is currently located. After a moment, Ouyang Tian finally calmed his emotions, then stared intently at Yang Tianzhan and asked, currently, the entire Yang family is in the Northern Territory. The people escorting them are so powerful that Brother Ouyang would find it hard to believe. That day, there were 2 late Shenyu realm existences who came to my Yang family residence, and it was because of their guarantee that I chose to join the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Yang Tianzhan was not too surprised by Ouyang Tian's speculation. Instead, he replied directly, while also recalling the vermilion bird and black and white mysterious sword from that day. So, Brother Ouyang, what is your choice now? After speaking, Yang Tianzhan looked expectantly at Ouyang Tian. He did not wish for Ouyang Tian to perish in this great battle. Do I still have a choice? Ouyang Tian looked bitterly at Ouyang Feng beside him after hearing Yang Tianzhan's words. Although he wanted to resist the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate to the death. However, Ouyang Tian did not want to see his daughter perish in this great battle. Since that is the case, then you and I shall go meet the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate together. Yang Tianzhan nodded with relief after hearing Ouyang Tian's words, then cupped his hands toward Ouyang Tian and spoke. Yang Tianzhan was extremely curious about the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate at this moment. After all, an existence capable of intimidating Murong Li with just the might of a single arrow naturally piqued his curiosity. Let's go. It might be good to meet him. Ouyang Tian had not expected that the result of him happily coming out to receive Yang Tianzhan would be this, so he spoke to Yang Tianzhan with disappointment in his eyes. Subsequently, Ouyang Tian, Yang Tianzhan, and the others rode their war horses toward the direction of the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Just as Yang Tianzhan and the others were heading toward Chu Fan and Guo Jia were playing chess inside the tent, looking extremely leisurely. Guo Jia's courtesy name. Do you think Ouyang Tian will surrender to my Prince of Jinbei's estate? Chu Fan, gently setting down a chess piece, smiled and spoke to Guo Jia. Guo Jia believes Ouyang Tian will surrender. After all, if not for himself, he must also consider the entire Ouyang family. What's more, Ouyang Tian deeply cherishes his daughter Ouyang Feng. He cannot allow Ouyang Feng to perish in Jindong City. Guo Jia likewise placed a chess piece, and then spoke unhurriedly to Chu Fan. Yes, the arrival of Yang Tianzhan this time is the perfect opportunity for Ouyang Tian to surrender. Qingyao, prepare tea and await the guest's arrival. Chu Fan naturally understood Guo Jia's meaning, and he had already guessed in his heart that Ouyang Tian would surrender to the Prince of Jinbei's estate. He placed another chess piece, then spoke to Qingyao beside him. Although Qingyao was somewhat surprised to hear Chu Fan's words, she quickly went down and started brewing tea. Chu Fan and Guo Jia played chess very calmly, while Yuan Qingdu, who was beside them, remained silent, guarding Chu Fan like an emotionless bodyguard. Time flowed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, a quarter of an hour had passed. At this moment, Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian appeared outside the army of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. Zhao Zilong, holding the dragon gallbladder bright silver spear, was waiting for the arrival of Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian in front of the army. Seeing their arrival, he slowly rode his warhorse forward. My heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate has been waiting for you two for a long time. Please follow this general. After speaking to the two, Zhao Zilong rode his warhorse and led the way for them. The white horse volunteers beside him also followed Zhao Zilong, carefully surveying the surrounding environment. Is this the legendary white horse, silver spear, Zhao Zilong? He truly lives up to the name, White Horse, Silver Spear, Zhao Zilong. Just the qi emanating from him is enough to make me tremble. Yang Tianzhan showed a look of shock on his face as he watched Zhao Zilong leading the way. He had naturally heard of Zhao Zilong's name, but seeing the immortal master in person was even more shocking. Chapter 136 Yang Tianzhan meets Chu Fan, the time of attacking the capital of Great Yin. At the same time, Yang Tianzhan also began sizing up the White Horse volunteers beside Zhao Zilong. When he sensed the cultivation levels of the White Horse volunteers, he was even more shocked. The 3,000 White Horse volunteers under the command of the heir of the Prince of Jinbei's estate had naturally become famous throughout the entire Great Yin Dynasty. As a great general of the Great Yin Dynasty, he had naturally heard of them. Now, seeing this true army, the shock on his face was even deeper than he had imagined. If the number of soldiers in this army reached tens of thousands, perhaps even 100,000 troops would not be their match. This thought suddenly appeared in Yang Tianzhan's mind. Although he had not truly fought against this army, he understood that if the numbers of this army reached a certain level, they could absolutely sweep across the entire Great Yan dynasty. Ouyang Tian, who was beside him, shared a similar thought to Yang Tianzhan. Initially, he had been somewhat unwilling to surrender to the Prince of Jinbei's estate, but upon seeing Zhao Zilong and the White Horse volunteers he led, he sighed helplessly. Perhaps he had surrendered to the Prince of Jinbei's estate out of helplessness at first, but now he was willing to submit to the Prince of Jinbei's estate wholeheartedly. A frightening thought suddenly arose in his heart. Perhaps the Prince of Jinbei's estate truly could replace the Great Yan dynasty and become the master of the Great Yan dynasty. If Chu Fan knew what he was thinking, he would definitely just smile, because Chu Fan's ambition was to conquer the entire eastern region. Soon, Zhao Zilong led Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian to the outside of Chu Fan's tent. The heir has instructed General Zilong to bring General Yang Tianzhan, General Yang Wu, Prince Ouyang Tian, and Princess Ouyang Feng into the tent. Upon arriving outside the tent, Zhao Zilong was greeted by a soldier. The soldier slowly stepped forward, cupped his hands toward Zhao Zilong, and spoke. After hearing the soldier's words, Zhao Zilong nodded to the people behind him. Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian naturally had no objections. The four followed Zhao Zilong and entered the tent. The four people who entered the tent immediately saw Chu Fan and Guo Jia playing chess. Beside them, Yuan Qingdu locked his qi onto the four the moment they entered. The terrifying qi made it difficult for all four of them to breathe. This person's cultivation is terrifying. He is probably the strongest existence within the Dharma aspect realm. Could he be the perfected Dharma aspect realm expert beside the heir? Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian exchanged glances, and at the same time, they had the same conjecture in their hearts. After all, they had heard that Chu Fan had a perfected Dharma aspect realm expert by his side. Since this person's cultivation was so terrifying, he must be that perfected Dharma aspect realm expert. Qingdu. At this moment, Chu Fan naturally sensed what was happening, so he spoke softly to Yuan Qingdu beside him. Only after hearing Chu Fan's words did Yuan Qingdu slowly retract the qi emanating from his body. This terrifying qi receded like a tide, and only then did Yang Tianzhan, Ouyang Tian, and the others breathe a deep sigh of relief. We greet the heir. The four quickly came before Chu Fan, bowed, and spoke. Yang Tianzhan and his son wore excited smiles, while Ouyang Tian and his daughter wore complex expressions. Starting from this day, they would completely lose the status of the Prince of Jindong's estate. Old General Yang, I have been waiting for you here for a long time. Welcome, old General Yang and General Yang, to my Prince of Jinbei's estate. Chu Fan slowly placed a chess piece, then spoke to Yang Tianzhan. After speaking, he turned his gaze toward Ouyang Tian and his daughter. Uncle Ouyang, your nephew already said that Jindong City would eventually fall into my hands. Welcome Uncle Ouyang and Miss Ouyang to my Prince of Jinbei's estate. There was no hint of blame in Chu Fan's words. Rather, it was as if he had anticipated this all along. Your subordinate, General, thanks the heir. After hearing Chu Fan's words, Yang Tianzhan and Yang Wu cupped their hands toward Chu Fan and spoke. Ouyang Tian and Ouyang Feng also bowed to Chu Fan. Please sit down and have some tea first. Greenbird. Chu Fan waved his hand at the group, then looked in the direction of Greenbird. Greenbird, having received the order, poured out 4 cups of tea and placed them on the table in front of him. Zilong, go call Qingji over. After instructing Greenbird, Chu Fan spoke to Zhao Zilong beside him. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, Zhao Zilong immediately left the tent. After a short while, Zhao Zilong brought Chun Qingji over. Your subordinate General Chun Qingji greets the heir. After arriving, Chun Qingji also bowed to Chu Fan. Seeing Ouyang Tian and the others inside the tent, Chun Qingji showed no great surprise. From now on, the entire eastern region has completely become the territory of the Prince of Jinbei's estate. I will hand the entire eastern region over to you for now. Chu Fan did not look up, but instead spoke slowly to Chun Qingji, as if the eastern region was nothing significant to him. Guojia's courtesy name. When do you think is the right time for us to attack the imperial capital of Great Yan? After speaking, Chu Fan looked toward Guojia and spoke unhurriedly. After hearing Chu Fan's words, the others all turned their gazes toward Guojia, because they all knew that the timing for attacking the imperial capital of Great Yan needed to be stated by the person before them. At the same time, Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian looked curiously at Guojia. They did not know why this young man was able to gain the approval of this mysterious heir. However, at this moment, they also felt that this young man was extraordinary. We still have 1 month of rest time. In 1 month, I believe General Qin Xiong and old General Yang should be able to conquer the entire southern region. At that time, the Great Yin Dynasty will not have any chance to resist. Furthermore, the heir still needs to pay attention to the Tianxin Dynasty, so it is best for us not to attack the imperial capital of Great Yin until we have absolute certainty. Guijia also spoke slowly at this time. According to his calculations, it would take Qin Xiong and Yang Yi at most 1 month to conquer the southern region. By then, the entire Great Yin Dynasty would have no chance to resist. After all, if the 4 regions, east, south, west, and north, all belong to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate, where could the Great Yin Dynasty flee? And from where could they seek aid? Good. Qingji, you have 1 month to organize the troops in the eastern region. At that time, Uncle Ouyang will help you organize all the troops in the eastern region. After 1 month, we will send troops to the imperial capital of Great Yin. After hearing Guijia's words, Chu Fan immediately agreed, then turned his head and spoke to Qin Qingji. Heir, rest assured, I will definitely help General Qin quickly organize the troops in the eastern region. Ouyang Tian also recovered from a shock at this moment, then quickly spoke to Chu Fan. He had not expected the Prince of Zhenbei's estate to launch an attack on the southern region at this time, and furthermore, without the knowledge of the outside world. Chapter 137 News reaches the capital, Murong Li's fury. General Yang, please follow Qingji and manage the entire Eastern Territory. I'm entrusting the Eastern Territory to the 3 of you. Chu Fan nodded after hearing Ouyang Tian's words. Then he looked towards Yang Tianzhan. Please rest assured, young master, this old man will definitely help General Qin quickly organize the Eastern Territory and then attack the imperial capital of Great Yin. Yang Tianzhan also stepped forward at this time and spoke earnestly to Chu Fan. As Chu Fan's order was issued, Chen Qingji's army also began to move. Because of Ouyang Tian's surrender, Zhendong City quickly fell into Chu Fan's hands. Chu Fan and Guijia also went directly into Zhendong City and settled down. Now, they only needed to wait for news from the Southern Territory. The news of Zhendong City falling into the Prince of Zhenbei's estate's hands quickly spread, and at the same time, the news of General Yang Tianzhan surrendering to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate also spread at an extremely fast pace. No one had expected that this great general of the Great Yin Dynasty would so decisively pledge allegiance to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate. At the same time, the news that the Prince of Zhenbei's estate possessed the eastern, western, and northern territories instantly shocked the various forces of the Great Yin Dynasty. They had not expected the Prince of Zhenbei's estate to take down 2 territories so quickly. It could be said that the Prince of Zhenbei's estate's territory was now no weaker than that of the Great Yin Dynasty. The news of Yang Tianzhan's surrender and Ouyang Tian's joining the Prince of Zhenbei's estate quickly reached the imperial capital of Great Yin. The common people and cultivators in the imperial capital of Great Yin, upon hearing this news, began to panic. After all, General Yang, who led an army of 400,000, had surrendered so easily, which caused a wave of panic in their hearts. Inside the palace of the Great Yin Dynasty, Murong Li looked ahead with a gloomy expression, his face still pale. Although he had been suppressing the power within his body these days, the powerful force could not be suppressed by him, making his body weaker day by day. And now, upon hearing the news that Yang Tianzhan and Ouyang Tian had both pledged allegiance to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate, he became even more furious. He had not expected Yang Tianzhan, whom he trusted so much, to betray him and join the Prince of Zhenbei's estate. Issue an order to arrest everyone in the general's residence and execute the 9 generations of the Yang family. The enraged Murong Li directly gave the order to the eunuch beside him. At this moment, he no longer cared about his imperial dignity as an emperor. Instead, he unleashed all his temper. Your subject obeys. The eunuch beside Murong Li also showed a flustered expression upon hearing Murong Li's words, and he quickly left the palace. The eunuch, upon arriving outside the palace, directly led the imperial guards towards the general's residence. Thousands of imperial guards heading towards the general's residence instantly attracted the attention of the common people of the Great Yin Dynasty. Is His Majesty planning to take action against the general's residence? Old General Yang is truly something. To choose to directly pledge allegiance to the Prince of Zhenbei's estate, doesn't he care about the fate of the general's residence? Who knows? Perhaps old General Yang never intended to care about the general's residence's fate. Poor talented woman Yang Shuiyan. No matter how pitiful, you wouldn't dare save her. The cultivators and common people of the imperial capital showed an as expected expression when they saw this group of imperial guards, because their great general had now betrayed them. Therefore, the entire general's residence was a symbol of shame for them. Many court officials also looked at the general's residence with schadenfreude. After all, Yang Tianzhan had many opposing forces in the court over the years. Any who resist will be executed without mercy. The eunuch arrived outside the general's residence and shouted loudly towards it. His voice quickly spread throughout the entire general's residence. However, no one inside the general's residence replied to the eunuch. Instead, it was eerily silent. The eunuch, not receiving a reply, was also somewhat angry, so he waved his hand towards the thousands of imperial guards behind him, and the imperial guards all rushed towards the general's residence. Soon, this group of imperial guards directly entered the general's residence, but upon entering, they were dumbfounded because there was not a single person inside the general's residence at this moment, as if they had completely vanished from within the general's residence. How is this possible? Can he even burrow into the ground? The eunuch, upon entering and seeing this scene, was also completely dumbfounded, and he screamed in disbelief. His voice quickly spread throughout the entire general's residence, but what answered him was still the silent stillness. You all stand guard here. I'll go back and report to His Majesty. The eunuch, seeing that there was no one inside the general's residence, also became flustered. He quickly transformed into a stream of light and disappeared from the general's residence. At this time, he no longer cared about the ban on flying in the imperial capital. Soon, the eunuch appeared inside the palace. What happened? Why does eunuch Wang look so flustered? Just as the eunuch was about to step into the main hall, a voice slowly entered his ears, and then a middle-aged man in a python robe appeared beside him. Greetings, Prince Zhao. This servant has urgent matters to report to your majesty. The eunuch bowed respectfully to the middle-aged man in the python robe, then quickly walked towards the palace. The general's residence didn't resist, did it? Murong Li frowned and asked, looking at the returning eunuch. Although the eunuch returned a bit quickly, he did not believe that the general's residence had the ability to escape from the imperial guards. We're reporting to your majesty. There is no one inside the general's residence, as if they had already left long ago. The eunuch looked at Murong Li in front of him, somewhat afraid to raise his head as he spoke. After speaking, his body continued to tremble. You said there's no one in the general's residence? How is that possible? Yesterday, the Golden Guard still reported to us that Yang Shuyan came out of the general's residence, and you're telling us there's no one in the general's residence? Upon hearing the eunuch's words, Murong Li was also somewhat shocked and surprised. He instantly stood up and spoke angrily to the eunuch in front of him. Reporting to your majesty, there's indeed not a single person in the general's residence, as if they already knew we were going to the general's residence. The eunuch, at this moment, suppressed the fear in his heart and spoke again to Murong Li. Your subject and younger brother greets, Imperial Brother. Imperial Brother, perhaps eunuch Wang is right, because when your subject and younger brother passed by the general's residence this morning, I saw that the general's residence was completely silent. It should be that everyone in the general's residence left either this morning or last night, but they should not have left the imperial capital yet. Just as Murong Li was about to get angry, a voice slowly came from outside the palace gate, and then a middle-aged man walked in. Eunuch Wang, seeing the middle-aged man enter, seemed to have found a savior and breathed a sigh of relief. Murong Li's heart sank upon hearing the middle-aged man